Chapter 1601, Kill Becky. Innate Sacred Heart. Zhou Feit could already feel that his opponent's attacks were getting weaker and weaker. That half-holy artifact of yours doesn't seem to be that easy to use. He chuckled. In the next second, he teleported to a place about a light year away from Becky. Then, with the Xian Yuan divine sword in hand, he slashed at Becky 12 times in a row. A total of 12 streams of sword chi shot towards Becky, sealing off all his escape space at the same time. Seeing that he couldn't dodge, Becky gritted his teeth and took out a golden rag from his world rings. He raised him to the sky and saw the golden rag expand in the wind. In the blink of an eye, it had become a huge golden cloth that could almost blot out the sky. The huge golden cloth enveloped Becky's body to block the attack of the myriad star sword. After the first 6 all-methods stellar swords landed on the golden cloth perfectly defended against them. However, when the 7th all-methods stellar sword landed on the golden cloth, moderate damage appeared for the first time. When the 8th all-methods stellar sword landed on the golden cloth, the damage increased further. Then came the 9th, the 10th. Rip. This huge golden cloth with the defense of the quasi-supreme realm was completely torn apart. It could no longer block the subsequent attacks of the all-methods star sword. Becky still wanted to use the half-holy artifact in his hand to block the last 2 swords. However, after using this quasi-supreme divine artifact, he didn't have much divine power left. How could he withstand it? Therefore, the 11th sword beam directly sent his blood supreme demonic scythe flying and struck him. Then the last sword beam sliced his body in half. Ah! Becky's screams resounded throughout the entire battlefield. All the god spirits who were fighting couldn't help but be attracted by this tragic cry. When the god spirit soldiers of the blood god army saw Becky's body cut into 2, their expressions immediately changed drastically. In particular, the quasi-supreme realm blood god who was fighting Lord of 10,000 Evils exclaimed, "Your Majesty!" Then he roared at Zhou Feit, "Common people's regal! How dare you! Our Majesty is the successor of the Crimson Overlord, the future Crimson Overlord. How dare you kill our Majesty? What are your intentions? You can't blame me for that." Zhou Feit also heard the other party's words. He said lightly, "Originally, I had no intention of killing your Majesty. However, your Majesty is too shameless. He even violated the basic rules of the battlefield. So don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, blame your unruly Majesty." With that, the Xian Yuan divine sword in his hand stabbed directly at Becky's brain. When Becky saw this scene, despair appeared on his face. He never expected that the lunatic Zhou Feit would really dare to kill him, even after knowing that he was the successor of the Crimson Overlord. Wasn't this guy afraid of the Crimson Overlord's revenge? Even if the Supreme Will came, it would probably hesitate for a moment if it wanted to kill him. This fellow's killing intent was actually so firm and decisive. Even the Supreme Will is not as ruthless as you. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have provoked this lunatic. If he hadn't provoked him, he wouldn't have ended up in such a state. Seeing that the Xian Yuan divine sword was getting closer and closer to his head, Becky wanted to struggle before he died. However, the supreme divine power that had been exhausted in his body made him unable to resist at all. He closed his eyes in fear, not daring to look at the scene of his impending death. At this moment, a voice suddenly appeared in his mind. It was the voice of the Supreme Will. At the same time, a voice also appeared in Zhou Feit's mind. "Zhou Feit, spare Becky's life. He is one of the successors of the Crimson Overlord. He cannot be killed at will." It was as if Zhou Feit did not hear the Supreme Will's words. He pierced Becky's head with his sword and crushed the Supreme God Divine Spark in his brain into powder. Becky's body stiffened, and then he immediately stopped breathing. Becky was dead. When Zhou Feit saw this, he looked relieved. Then, he reacted and said in surprise, "Lord Supreme Will, were you the one who spoke in my mind just now? I was fighting this guy with all my might just now, and didn't have the energy to pay attention to anything outside the battle. So I didn't hear what you just said. What did you say just now? Can you tell me again?" "Supreme Will, your Majesty." Another quasi-supreme blood god roared in the distance. He fought desperately in extreme anger. Fortunately, Lord of 10,000 Evil's combat strength was not inferior at all. Even if he unleashed his potential, he was still suppressed by the Lord of 10,000 Evils. The Lord of 10,000 Evils even had the energy to transmit his voice to Zhou Fight. I've transcended, brother common people's regal. In the future, when we're outside, you'll be my brother, and I'll be your brother. I won't call myself a brother anymore. He even dared to kill the successor of the Crimson Overlord. Even God King Heaven Punishment and Dharma Lord Spring Autumn wouldn't dare to do such a thing. After the shock, the Lord of 10,000 Evils also became worried. Killing Becky would make us feel good, but the consequences of killing him are very hard to bear. The Crimson Overlord will definitely take the initiative to find trouble with you. You have to be prepared. Brother, I won't abandon you. When the time comes, just say that we killed him together. With the two of us taking the blame together, even the Crimson Overlord wouldn't dare to punish us too severely. After all, we are the reserve army of the Supreme Lord. He also has to be wary of our identities. He should be wary. Towards the end, the Lord of 10,000 Evils was a little uncertain. Crimson Overlord did things without any restrictions. It was the complete opposite of the Supreme Will's style. At the thought of this, the Lord of 10,000 Evils suddenly became a little timid. However, he didn't take back what he had said. Since he had already decided to take the blame with his brother, he wouldn't regret it. When Zhou Fight heard the Lord of 10,000 Evils' words, he could not help but feel speechless. However, this guy's personality was indeed very likable, so Zhou Fight did not deny it. To have a Supreme Lord Reserve Army as a follower, thinking about it, was really a little satisfying. He looked at the battlefield and realized that his own army, and the 1,000 Evil Army's God Spirit Army, were still fighting Becky's Blood God Army. With the augmentation of the Blood Supreme Demon Scythe's semi-holy artifact domain, these guys could barely pose a threat to their army. When Zhou Fight saw this, he immediately retrieved Becky's spoils of war. It could only be said that Becky was indeed worthy of being the Scarlet Supreme Reserve Army. He had more than 100 Supreme Divine Artifacts. There were a total of 5 Quasi-Supreme Will Realm treasures. Needless to say, it was a half-holy artifact, Blood Supreme Demonic Scythe. What surprised Zhou Fight the most was that he had also discovered a Supreme Will treasure in the other party's world ring. This treasure was a golden plant that looked like a baby. It emitted a refreshing aura. Zhou Fight only smelled it for a second before he felt that the willpower he had consumed today had recovered a lot. What a treasure! Zhou Fight looked surprised. He looked over and the treasure information appeared. Treasure name: Innate Sacred Heart, treasure grade. Willpower level superior, treasure effect. After a Supreme Will Realm existence consumes it, when that Supreme Will Realm existence dies, it can be reborn through the innate Sacred Heart. Treasure description: an ownerless treasure that was originally floating in the ultimate void. Later on, Becky, who was searching for treasures in the ultimate void, happened to encounter it and kept it. Note: only those who possess the will of a Supreme Will can recognize this treasure as their master. Chapter 1602. First Meeting with the Crimson Overlord. Narrow Death. Innate Sacred Heart. This treasure can actually allow a Supreme Will Realm existence to have a second life? What kind of treasure is this? Even an existence at the Supreme Will Realm would probably go crazy over this treasure, right? Zhou Fight looked at this treasure, and even felt a sense of trepidation. Becky was really lucky to be able to obtain such a treasure in the ultimate void. He immediately put it into his #1 treasure vault without thinking. He decided to keep this treasure for himself. Even though he was only a grade 1 Supreme God, and was still far from the Supreme Will Realm, he believed that he would be able to reach it sooner or later. At that time, this treasure would become his life-saving treasure. Becky's luck is indeed good. It's indeed a little unlucky to say that. He clearly has a supreme treasure that can revive, but only existences at the Supreme Will Realm can use it. So much so that he died hugging a treasure. Zhou Fight shook his head. This guy died aggrievedly. Then, he took out Becky's second most precious spoils of war. It was the Blood Supreme Demonic Scythe. He used the power of his will to make it recognize him as his master. He then activated the ability of this half-holy artifact. In the next second, the thin blood mist emitted by the Blood Supreme demonic scythe that covered the battlefield within a radius of 100,000 light years was absorbed back by the Blood Supreme demonic scythe like a whale. In less than a moment, the blood mist on the entire battlefield disappeared. On the other hand, the Blood God Army soldiers, whose strength had temporarily increased due to the magic sickle blood mist domain, also fell back rapidly. In fact, they became even weaker. It seems that the temporary increase in strength obtained by using the Blood Supreme demonic scythe's blood mist is not without a price. Zhou smiled when he saw this. The following situation wasn't beyond his expectations. Without Becky as their leader, and without the enhancement of the Demon Scythe blood mist domain, the morale and strength of this group of Blood God Army soldiers suffered a heavy blow. Them, whose strength was inferior to the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's God Spirit Army, was almost beaten up by the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's God Spirit Army and the Thousand Evil Army in the following period of time. In less than an hour, Becky's Blood God Army was completely destroyed. Even the Blood God with the strength of the Quasi-Supreme Will realm was personally killed by the Lord of 10,000 Evils. Awesome! The Lord of 10,000 Evils carried the other party's corpse to Zhou fight and said happily, "It's been a long time since we had such a good fight." With that, he handed the corpse to Zhou fight. "Your spoils of war. Why are you giving them to me?" Zhou fight waved goodbye. It's not for free. Big brother, can I use this quasi-supreme will realm corpse to exchange for a few supreme divine artifacts? I already have quite a number of supreme gods under my command, but there are still too few supreme divine artifacts. Some supreme gods are even using master god tier divine artifacts as their main weapons. The Lord of 10,000 Evils complained. Zhou fight. He felt that this guy had let go of a lot in a certain aspect after recognizing his brother's position. Do you know about the supreme divine artifact I gave to the supreme will? Zhou fight suddenly asked. I also just received the news. I heard that on the battlefield over at God King Heaven Punishment's side, because of the 100,000 supreme divine artifacts that Big Brother gave him, the entire Twilight battlefield situation has improved a lot. The Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled. There were a total of 100,000 supreme divine artifacts. This was something that could not be hidden even if he wanted to. The Lord of 10,000 Evils didn't even need to specially inquire. And this news had already reached his ears. Otherwise, he wouldn't have suddenly proposed such a deal to Zhou fight. How many supreme divine artifacts do you want to exchange for? Zhou fight nodded and asked. 60. The Lord of 10,000 Evils probed. The price he mentioned was already considered very fair. He had given Zhou fight the corpse of a quasi-supreme will realm enemy after all. If he was lucky, it was very likely that he would obtain a quasi-supreme will realm treasure, or even a quasi-supreme will realm inheritance from this corpse. Compared to the quasi-supreme will level loots, the value of a supreme divine artifact was much lower. 60 supreme divine artifacts was a reasonable price. Zhou fight also understood this logic, so he did not waste any time, and directly threw a world ring to the other party. Lord of 10,000 Evils immediately took it, and entered it with the power of will to check. Then, his eyes immediately widened. There were a total of 600 supreme divine artifacts stored in this world ring. Even though they were all supreme divine artifacts below grade 3 supreme divine artifacts, it still shocked Lord of 10,000 Evils quite a bit. He looked at Zhou fight with eyes full of admiration. Was this the big brother that he had just acknowledged? As expected of the common people's regal, who took out 100,000 supreme god artifacts at once. This was simply 2F** King Rich. Thank you, big brother Zhou. The Lord of 10,000 Evils was extremely happy. Zhou fight shook his head nonchalantly. At this moment, a scarlet eye suddenly appeared in the sky. As soon as the scarlet eye appeared, the entire battlefield, the entire ultimate void battleground, turned scarlet. Endless scarlet fog appeared out of thin air, and quickly covered a large number of war territories. Zhou Fight and the Lord of 10,000 Evils looked at each other and said respectfully, "Greetings, Lord Crimson Overlord." Zhou, who was far away in the Reincarnation Sacred Palace, stood up and said respectfully. The Crimson Overlord did not say anything. It just stared at Zhou Fight like a crazy and disorderly monster. In the next second, a red light lit up in his scarlet eyes. Zhou Fight, Zhou, and all of Zhou's clones fell asleep almost at the same time. After an unknown period of time, Zhou Fight opened his eyes. He saw the face of Lord of 10,000 Evils in front of him. Not far away was the figure of the Supreme Will. Big brother Zhou, you're finally awake. The Lord of 10,000 Evils heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Zhou Fight had woken up. What happened to me just now? Zhou Fight asked. At the same time, this was also a problem with the main body. At this moment, his main body and all his clones had also awakened in the Reincarnation Sacred Palace, the High Continent, and the various worlds. They all wanted to know what had just happened. You were attacked by Lord Crimson Overlord just now. Fortunately, you have a treasure on you and the Supreme Will saved you, saving your life. Or you could be dead, the Lord of 10,000 Evils said. With that said, he handed the treasure over. One of them was a will-level, low-level treasure, resolute treasure seal. At this moment it had completely shattered. The other was the will holy artifact, holy scripture of the heart. As a will holy artifact, the holy scripture of the heart did not shatter, but a crack appeared on its surface. Zhou Fight heaved a sigh of relief. As long as it wasn't completely broken. You're reckless, the Supreme Will said. It was him who broke the rules first. If I don't kill Becky, I won't be able to calm down. It will be more difficult for me to advance to the Supreme Will realm in the future. Besides, I didn't kill him completely. Could it be that the Crimson Overlord can't even revive him? Zhou Fight asked. He had indeed held back. Otherwise, with his current methods, he could completely make Becky unable to revive. The Supreme Will said nothing. The Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled and said, Big brother, you're right. Becky has indeed been revived by the Crimson Overlord. But he has also been stripped of his identity as the Crimson Overlord's successor. Now there are only 3 successors left. Big brother, you forcefully defeated a Scarlet Supreme Reserve army. Chapter 1603, Faith Divine Talisman. Fighting the Ultimate Void Race Army. 1. The Lord of 10,000 Evils said these words with a sense of pride. Zhou Fight did not dare to speak, because the Supreme Will had not spoken. Zhou Fight thought for a moment, and decided to admit his mistake. Supreme Will, the main reason why such a big thing happened this time was because I was worried about my own future. So I was too impulsive. Please punish me, Supreme Will. Zhou Fight said obediently. The Supreme Will sighed and said, Forget it. I've already understood what happened. You really can't be entirely to blame for this matter. Becky was indeed a little too much. Zhou Fight was overjoyed. However, in the next second, he heard the Supreme Will change his tone. But you're too ruthless. You actually killed Becky. In order to apologize to the Crimson Overlord, I gave him 50,000 of the 100,000 Supreme Divine Artifacts you gave me last time. The Supreme Will sighed. The truth was that he had only given him 20,000 Supreme Divine Artifacts. He had only said those words to scare Zhou Fight so that he would pay more attention next time. When Zhou Fight heard this, he did not hesitate to take out 50,000 Supreme Divine Artifacts from his #1 treasure vault and give them to the other party. Lord Supreme Will, I still have 50,000 Supreme Divine Artifacts here. I'll give them to you directly. Take them back first to deal with the emergency. As soon as he said that, not to mention the Lord of 10,000 Evils, even the Supreme Will was stunned. Another 50,000 Supreme Divine Artifacts? Didn't he already give him 100,000 Supreme Divine Artifacts last time? How long had it been since then? And he had already given him so many Supreme Divine Artifacts. How many Supreme Divine Artifacts did this guy have? The Supreme Will remained outwardly impassive even though he was shocked. He received the 50,000 Supreme Divine Artifacts inside. Other than the Supreme Divine Artifacts, I also gave the Crimson Overlord 1,000,000 Grade 1 Supreme God Crystals. Upon hearing this, Zhou Fite took out 5,000,000 Grade 1 Supreme God Divine Crystals from his #1 treasure vault without hesitation. He had collected more than 20,000,000 Supreme God Crystals yesterday. A mere 5,000,000 Grade 1 Supreme God Divine Crystals was nothing to Zhou Fite. When the Supreme Will saw the world ring that Zhou Fite handed over, he could not help but fall into deep thought again. He put it away and said nonchalantly, "In addition to the Supreme Divine Artifacts and Supreme God Crystals, I also compensated the Crimson Overlord with 10,000,000 Supreme God-level Divine Herbs." Zhou Fite. No matter how slow he was, he knew that the other party was asking for treasures from him. However, he thought for a moment and said, "Lord Supreme Will, I do have 10,000,000 Supreme God-level Divine Herbs on me. But after the Crimson Overlord's attack just now, my Holy Scripture of the Heart was also damaged. The Resolute Treasure Seal, a low-level will-level treasure, was directly destroyed. I wonder if you can help me repair them?" The Lord of 10,000 Evils, who was listening at the side, immediately widened his eyes when he heard this. "Good God, you're actually bargaining with the Supreme Will? Do you really know who you're talking to?" However, what shocked Lord of 10,000 Evils even more was that after hearing Zhou Fite's words, the Supreme Will thought for a moment and actually agreed readily. He waved his right hand, and the Will Holy Artifact Holy Scripture of the Heart flew in front of him. With a light tap of the Supreme Will, beams of pure white light flew out of his body and fused into the Holy Scripture of the Heart. In less than a moment, the Holy Scripture of the Heart that had just cracked had already recovered to its original state. He waved his hand gently, and the Holy Scripture of the Heart flew back to Zhou Fite. Zhou Fite looked at the Holy Scripture of the Heart in front of him, happily, and heaved a sigh of relief. He still hoped to advance to the Supreme Will realm through the Holy Scripture of the Heart in the future. He could even advance by leaps and bounds at the Supreme Will realm. If anything happened to the Holy Scripture of the Heart, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Right at that moment, the Supreme Will said, "It's easy to repair the Holy Scripture of the Heart, but the Resolute Treasure Seal is a treasure from another universe. In addition, it's completely damaged. Even I can't restore it to its original state. I'll tell you what. I'll give you another treasure that's not inferior to the Resolute Treasure Seal at all. But you also have to give me 10,000,000 Supreme God-level minerals. Will you take it?" "Of course." Zhou Fite agreed without hesitation. Then, he took out the world ring containing 10,000,000 Supreme God-level minerals and handed it to the Supreme Will. The Supreme Will received it and flipped his right hand. A talisman appeared in his hand and flew in front of Zhou Fite. Zhou Fite looked over. This talisman was entirely golden in color, and there were extremely complicated talismans engraved on its surface. These talismans emitted an extremely huge amount of willpower and power of faith. It could even make Zhou Fite, who had the strength of a quasi-supreme willpower realm, feel fear. He looked over expectantly. Treasure name: Divine Talisman of Faith, treasure grade. Willpower level, mid-level, treasure effect. A supreme treasure condensed from the pure faith of a great believer from another universe. It can protect living beings with faith talismans from the influence of external willpower. The user can control the faith divine talisman to remove the mind control of other life forms. At most, it can remove the mind control used by supreme willpower realm experts. Treasure introduction. It comes from the possession of a great believer. After this great believer died, the faith condensed from his entire life condensed on this protective divine talisman, causing it to undergo a metamorphosis. It advanced from an ordinary 4th grade supreme god level treasure to a supreme treasure at the will level and middle level. Chapter 1604, Faith Divine Talisman. Fighting the Ultimate Void Race Army. 2. What a treasure! Zhou Fite's eyes lit up. The Resolute Treasure Seal was only a will level low-level treasure. However, This faith talisman was a mid-level will-level treasure. It was a small level higher than the resolute treasure seal. The only disadvantage was that this faith talisman could only work on a single individual. It couldn't have any effect on his subordinates like the resolute treasure seal. However, Zhou Feit had already grasped the land of earth, a minister of the king's skill. Could such a top-notch domain-type law skill like the land of the king could completely use this law skill to protect his subordinates from the control of other enemies' wills? Therefore, this shortcoming was actually not too big of a shortcoming. Thank you, High Will. Zhou Feit looked at the divine talisman of faith for a while before reluctantly putting it away. Then, he thanked the Supreme Will. Zhou Feit felt that he had profited from being able to use supreme god-level minerals to exchange for a supreme treasure at the mid-level of willpower. He did not lack supreme god-level treasures at all after all. He did not even need quasi-supreme will-level treasures. What he lacked was such supreme will-level treasures. The Supreme Will nodded and instructed, "Don't do anything so risky in the future." This time, it was the Crimson Overlord that showed mercy and allowed you to survive. If he didn't show any mercy, even I wouldn't be able to save you. Yes, Supreme Will. Zhou Feit nodded seriously. In fact, if Becky hadn't been so shameless, he wouldn't have killed him. Now that Becky was completely finished, he wouldn't do such an impulsive thing again. The Supreme Will nodded, then slowly disappeared. After the Supreme Will completely disappeared, the Lord of 10,000 Evils came to Zhou Feit with a shocked expression. "This whole thing just went away?" he asked in disbelief. "What else?" Zhou Feit chuckled. "That's a Supreme Scarlet Reserve. You killed such a Supreme Scarlet Reserve. But now Lord Crimson Overlord and Lord Supreme Will are letting you off just like that?" The Lord of 10,000 Evils was still extremely shocked. "With that tone of yours, could it be that you want me to be punished by these two lords?" Zhou Feit said unhappily. "Not really. I'm just shocked." The Lord of 10,000 Evils hurriedly shook his head. Zhou Feit did not make things difficult for him, and said, "The Supreme Will wouldn't punish me too much to begin with. He is probably still praising me in his heart. In recent years, Lord Supreme Will has always been at a disadvantage in the battle with the Crimson Overlord. Now a newly promoted Supreme Lord Reserve can kill one of Lord Crimson Overlord's reserve army. I'm giving face to the Supreme Will. Do you think the Supreme Will is happy?" Lord of 10,000 Evils also reacted. "You're right. If I were the Supreme Will, even if I punished you on the surface, I might not be proud of you." After saying that, the Lord of 10,000 Evils couldn't help but look at Zhou Feit enviously. Then, he thought for a moment and lamented, "You deserve all of this. Only a confident and decisive fellow like you would dare to personally kill the Supreme Scarlet Reserve Army. If it were me, even the Spring and Autumn Dharma Lord wouldn't dare to do so." "God King Heaven Punishment dares?" Zhou Feit asked curiously. "He dares." The Lord of 10,000 Evils nodded without hesitation. "That fellow is the same as you. He is a person who can't tolerate a grain of sand in his eyes. If he were to encounter a fellow like Becky, he would definitely kill him with his own hands." However, he had been famous for a long time, so very few god spirits dared to be as arrogant in front of him as Becky in his era. Zhou Feit nodded. After the Lord of 10,000 Evils and him cleaned up the battlefield, he left the White Dawn Void Mystic Realm. However, just as he and the Lord of 10,000 Evils left the White Dawn Void Mystic Realm, they saw a large number of Ultimate Void Army waiting for them outside the Void Mystic Realm. They only took a glance, and the expressions of Zhou Feit and the Lord of 10,000 Evils turned solemn. This was because the Ultimate Void Army was far superior to any of the Ultimate Void Army that they had seen before. The number of ordinary god spirits alone had reached 100 billion in the Ultimate Void Army in front of him. The number of true gods had reached 10 billion. The number of master gods had reached 100,000. And the number of supreme gods had reached 100. Even so, Zhou Feit's expression did not turn serious. What made Zhou Feit's expression turn solemn was that the two fellows standing in front of this Ultimate Void Army were clearly the leaders of this Ultimate Void Army. The leader on the left was wearing ice blue armor and holding an ice blue spear. His sharp and cold aura was extremely shocking. It was even enough to freeze the will of ordinary supreme gods. The leader on the right was wearing a colorful robe, and his body was wrapped in various bags of various sizes. Various strange beasts' cries could be vaguely heard from these bags. Some were terrifying, some were dignified, some were mysterious, and some were pleasant to the ears. The creatures who heard this sound could not help but guess what strange creatures were inside the colorful bags. A quasi-supreme will state being. And two of them. The Void Emperor really thinks highly of me. He even called such a master over in order to deal with me. Zhou Feit muttered to himself. The Lord of 10,000 Evils also looked at Monin and Sheila solemnly. Big brother Zhou, I might not be able to help you later. I just used a method to stimulate my potential and forcefully raised my strength to the quasi-supreme willpower realm. I'm currently in a weak state, and my current combat strength is not even comparable to an ordinary grade 4 supreme god. Even if I tried to help you by force, I'm afraid it would only make things worse. Yes, Zhou Feit nodded. He knew that Lord of 10,000 Evils wasn't lying and said, You don't have to help me. I should be able to deal with two existences at the quasi-supreme will realm. Coincidentally, I'd like to see how strong I am now. The Lord of 10,000 Evils looked at Zhou Feit in shock, but he thought about it and didn't say anything. He believed that Zhou Feit would not force himself. Since he said it could be done, it definitely could be done. Right at that moment, the quasi-supreme will realm existence wearing ice blue armor and holding an ice blue spear said, Common people's regal. We've been waiting for you. He pointed his spear at Zhou Feit and said coldly, I, Monin, have come to take your life under the orders of the Void Emperor. And me, Sheila said with a smile. If you want to fight, fight. Cut the crap. Zhou Feit grinned. Then, he directly drew the Xian Yuan divine sword and pointed the tip of the sword at the ultimate void army in the distance. Soldiers, listen to my orders. Kill. 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 The blazing sun divine kingdom's god spirit army immediately charged towards the other party. Even though the other party surpassed them, in all aspects in terms of the number of god spirits, they did not have any fear in their hearts when facing such an enemy. Kill. Monin and Sheila did not say much when they saw this, and directly sent an army over. The two armies quickly clashed, and began a bloody battle. Zhou Feit was not in a hurry to take action. Instead, he first took out the Bodhi Supreme, and asked if the other party had any means to stop him from inciting incite defection. The result was within Zhou Feit's expectations. Yes, this also meant that his heavenly summoning in Land of Earth, a minister of the king, were temporarily useless. He immediately activated Heart Thief and observed who was carrying the treasures that prevented him from using heavenly summoning and the coast of Earth. In the end, he realized that he couldn't be seen. The other party seemed to have prepared a method to prevent he from observing. With his Heart Pirate Lord talent, he couldn't even see what the other party had that could be stolen. I guess we'll have to go head to head. Zhou Feit muttered to himself. He had no fear in his heart. He only felt that many god spirits would probably die in this battle. Even a group of supreme gods would probably die. Fortunately, he had the means to revive, so he wasn't too worried about resurrection after the war. Then, he stopped thinking about it. With the Xian Yuan divine sword in hand, he transformed into a 9-colored stream of light and flew brazenly towards Monin and Sheila. Chapter 1605. Huge Battle 1. How dare you? When Monin and Sheila saw that Zhou Feit actually dared to rush towards them alone, they could not help but sneer. However, the two deities did not dare to underestimate each other. They flew over together and fought Zhou Feit. Seeing this, Zhou Feit raised his right hand from afar and executed the myriad method's star palm. Monin waved the ice spear in his hand and stabbed towards the other party's palm. He saw a divine spear phantom fly out and shoot towards the golden palm of the myriad method's star palm. The two sides quickly collided. Boom! A huge explosion occurred in the center of the collision between the myriad method's star palm and the phantom of the divine spear. causing the surrounding void to shatter, revealing the endless darkness behind the ultimate void. Zhou Fight, Monin, and Sheila were all blasted more than 10 light-years away by the aftershock of the explosion. Next, the three deities flew towards the other party. In the blink of an eye, they arrived before them. Monin held an ice spear and fought Zhou Fight, who was holding the Xian Yuan divine sword. Clang, 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 clang. The two sides fought rapidly, exchanging hundreds of blows in the blink of an eye. Sheila, who saw the scene not far away, was secretly shocked. He was Monin's good friend, so he knew Monin's attainments in spear techniques very well. Monin's close combat ability was enough to be ranked in the top 10 among the many quasi-supreme Will Realm subordinates under the Void Emperor. However, this common people's regal was clearly just a newly promoted Grade 1 supreme god. He relied on a mysterious law skill to have the strength of the quasi-supreme Will Realm. Now in a close combat, he was actually not inferior to Monin at all. How could Sheila not be shocked? The Emperor is right. If we let this common people's regal continue gaining strength, he will definitely become a future threat to our ultimate void race. Sheila's killing intent intensified. He pulled off the 5 pockets on his waist and threw them into the sky. 5 streams of light flew out of the 5 bags and landed in the ultimate void, turning into 5 huge terrifying beasts. Some of them were like wolves, some were like tigers, and some had twisted bodies. Just a glance could make ordinary god spirits go crazy. Some would produce pure faith in their hearts with just a glance. The last fear behemoth was a huge dragon. From the aura on his body, it was a corpse demon dragon at the quasi-supreme Will Realm. The Azura evil dragons under the Lord of 10,000 Evils were like infants in front of this demonic corpse dragon. Under the lead of the corpse demon dragon, the 5 terrifying beasts rushed towards Zhou Fight and surrounded him with Monin. And that's not all. After Sheila released the 5 terrifying beasts, he still chanted spells on the spot and used supplementary spells to enhance the 5 terrifying beasts, allowing them to improve their combat strengths. After 20 consecutive auxiliary curses, the combined combat strength of these 5 terrifying beasts was even comparable to 2 quasi-supreme Will Realm experts. Zhou Fight could have only tied with Monin. With the addition of these 5 terrifying beasts, he was directly suppressed by they, and his situation quickly became dangerous. However, Zhou Fight was not afraid at all. Instead, he fought even more fiercely as if he did not care about his life. Monin and the 5 beasts were very shocked by Zhou Fight's desperate actions. However, they were happy to do so. This way, Zhou Fight could die earlier, and they would at most be injured. But soon, they realized that something was wrong. This was because when Zhou Fight's attack landed on them, it could easily cause damage to their divine bodies. And when their attacks landed on Zhou Fight's body, they did not leave any damage, as if Zhou Fight had an immortal body. The defense of the armor on him is very strong. We can't break through it. Soon, Monin discovered the reason why he could not hurt Zhou Fight. When Zhou Fight saw that they had recognized the quasi-supreme Will divine artifact below supreme grade, he did not care and continued to attack. They crazily. "I'll do it. Watch me deal with this armor of his." One of the 5 behemoths, a twisted behemoth, said. His voice rumbled. Just his words alone could cause great fear to ordinary god spirits. However, this naturally had no effect on Zhou Fight, who had the divine talisman of faith. However, this huge beast did not expect its words to affect Zhou Fight. He formed hand seals in the void from afar and chanted an incantation. When Zhou Fight saw this, he did not hesitate to slash out 3-sword chi with the power of the myriad methods star palm to stop the other party from using his methods. Block him. Protect Guru. Sheila, who saw this scene from afar, hurriedly reminded loudly. "I'll do it." When Monin heard this, he immediately came in front of Guru and protected him. However, he only blocked the sword energy of the previous 2 myriad methods star palms and felt that his divine power was insufficient. He was shocked and hurriedly retreated to the side. Behind him, Guru's expression changed as he forcefully withstood the final blow. Rip! Guru's head split into 2 and he died. but he still completed his law skill before he died. Go! He roared. The next second, an illusory divine light shot out and hit Zhou Fight, making it impossible for him to dodge. Zhou Fight frowned as he looked at the supreme weapon he was wearing. The below supreme grade on his body actually slowly became transparent, and finally completely disappeared. Chapter 1606. Huge battle too. However, he could sense that his below supreme grade had only temporarily disappeared. It had not really disappeared. After a while, when the power of the illusory divine light dissipated, it would appear on him again. Haha, common people's regal, without that powerful armor, let's see how you can deal with our joint attack. The corpse demon dragon laughed. Common people's regal, your death is here. Monin said coldly. Sheila, who was in the distance, also looked at Zhou Fight with a vicious expression. It cost me one of my generals. Common people's regal, I want to use your death to compensate for my losses. After saying that, he immediately ordered the other 4 pets to attack Zhou Fight. Seeing this, Monin immediately joined forces with them to deal with Zhou Fight. Zhou Fight soon engaged them in battle again. Without below supreme grade, many wounds quickly appeared on Zhou Fight's body when he fought them. This was also because he had a grade 1 supreme sacred body. The defense of his body was comparable to a grade 3 supreme divine artifact. Otherwise, he would have been severely injured. However, even so, his performance still shocked Monin and them. They never expected that without the protection of that powerful armor, this common people's regal could actually withstand the combined offensive of these god spirits with just his physical defense. One had to know that among them were 2 quasi-supreme willpower realm combatants. Behind them was Sheila, a quasi-supreme willpower realm expert, who was assisting them in dealing with Zhou Fight. The joint attack of 3 quasi-supreme willpower experts only caused Zhou Fight some superficial injuries. This was something they had never expected. The more they felt that the growth of the common people's regal was a future threat to them, so they were even more ruthless. Zhou Fight laughed out loud. As Zhou Fight's main battle avatar, not only was he not afraid of being surrounded by powerful enemies, he was even more excited. Okay. I haven't had this much fun in a long time. He smiled happily. After saying that, he suddenly slashed at the 5 of them with the sword energy of the myriad methods star palm. The 5 of them had already witnessed the power of this sword energy. None of them dared to resist it head-on, and they dodged. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Zhou Fight immediately withdrew and flew higher into the sky, looking down at the 5 god spirits. Common people's regal, stop struggling and acting tough. You're definitely going to die today. Sheila looked at Zhou Fight viciously. Common people's regal, if you're willing to seal the divine power in your body and surrender to my master, I can make the decision to spare your life. You're talented. Even the Supreme God won't be your end. It's very likely that you'll reach the Supreme Will realm in the future. You don't want to die here today, right? Join our ultimate Void race. The Void Emperor won't mistreat you. He will treat you better than the Supreme Will. In the future, we might all have to call you Lord. Monin suddenly said. Sheila immediately glared at Monin. However, Monin ignored Sheila completely and looked at Zhou Fight sincerely. That's tempting. Zhou Fight smiled and said, but the Supreme Will is also very good to me, so I refuse. When Monin heard this, his expression immediately darkened. I gave you face, but you don't want it. Attack together. Kill him, he said angrily. Then, he took the lead and rushed towards Zhou Fight. The other 4 beasts also followed Monin and attacked Zhou Fight. Sheila sneered and continued to use his methods to assist them in their offensive against Zhou Fight. Ha ha ha, if you want to fight, just fight. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Why didn't you do this earlier? It'll let you understand the new ability I mastered after becoming a supreme god. Zhou Fight laughed. Then, his divine body suddenly emitted an infinite golden light. This golden light was so dazzling that the 5 god spirits who rushed over had no choice but to cover their eyes to prevent their eyes from being pierced by this golden light. After the golden light dissipated, they looked at the Zhou war and was immediately shocked. A 9-clawed golden dragon that was 90,000 light-years tall replaced Zhou Fight's original position and lay in the ultimate void. The divine body of this Eastern divine dragon was really too powerful. Coupled with the terrifying dragon might, Monin and they were even stunned on the spot when they saw this Eastern divine dragon. It was a long time before they came back to their senses. When Zhou Fight saw their reaction, his heart was as calm as an ancient well. He looked at the ultimate void battlefield, and even saw the sanctuary of the ultimate void race in the distance. This 95 Supreme King Dragon God's body still has many mysteries to explore, he thought. Right at that moment, even though Sheila could tell that the 95 Supreme King Dragon God was extraordinary, he still said coldly, "What's the point of having a big body? Those that would die would still die. Attack!" After the 3 terrifying beasts heard Sheila's order, they immediately charged at the 95 Supreme King Dragon God. However, only the corpse demon dragon with the strength of the quasi-supreme Will realm stood rooted to the ground, trembling as it looked at Zhou Fight's supreme dragon god body in extreme fear. Sheila was furious when he saw this. "Corpse demon dragon, what are you doing? Hurry up and kill he." "Master." The corpse demon dragon's voice was trembling, and its tone was filled with fear. "I don't dare to attack him. His bloodline is far superior to mine. If I attack him, he'll be devoured by the law of the dragon. You're already at the quasi-supreme Will realm. Even the backlash of the law of the dragon won't hurt you much." Chapter 1607. Huge Battle 3, Sheila said angrily. I wouldn't dare." The corpse demon dragon naturally understood that logic. However, the fear that came from the depths of his blood made him not dare to attack Zhou Fight even if he understood this principle. "How dare you disobey me?" Sheila was furious. "Master, I'm not," the corpse demon dragon hurriedly explained. However, Sheila did not want to listen to his explanation at all. He was now focused on killing Zhou Fight. This way, he could be in the limelight in front of the Void Emperor. When the Void Emperor was happy, he might reward him with a treasure that could advance to the Supreme Will realm. At that time, he could reach the heavens in a single step. Thinking of this, he took a deep breath and formed hand seals with both hands. He whispered, "Sacrifice seal." The next second, the corpse demon dragon's eyes revealed fear, and then there was a bang. His divine spark and heart exploded almost at the same time. The divine spark and heart of a quasi-supreme Will realm dragon god shattered at the same time, instantly providing this dragon god with extremely terrifying power. The corpse demon dragon's pale eyes instantly turned blood red. At the same time, a large amount of blood mist and defeated divine power spread out around his dragon body. This was a phenomenon caused by its dragon body being unable to suppress an overly shocking power, causing its power to leak out. Seeing this scene, Monin was secretly shocked. Sheila was really crazy. He actually abandoned his most important pet in order to kill the common people's regal. Even though this sacrifice seal would provide extremely terrifying power in a short period of time, and could even increase the corpse demon dragon's combat strength to the peak of the quasi-supreme Will realm, there was a time limit. Once the time passed, the corpse demon dragon would definitely die. However, he could understand the other party's actions. If they killed this common people's regal, the Void Emperor's reward would definitely not disappoint them after all. He stopped thinking and attacked the 95 Supreme King Dragon God with the other 3 beasts. They were actually very afraid under the influence of the 95 Supreme King Dragon God. They still had an extremely strong will, and could barely attack Zhou Fight. However, their combat strength was inevitably affected. Kill this huge dragon god as soon as possible. Otherwise, our combat strength will become weaker and weaker. At that time, we won't be able to kill him at all. Monin shouted. The other 3 beasts nodded, and attacked Zhou Fight's 95 Supreme King Dragon God body. But soon, they were dumbfounded. This was because their attacks could not cause any damage to the dragon body. Even Monin's attack only left a few wounds on the dragon body, But these wounds recovered almost in the blink of an eye. An immortal body. When Monin saw this, his expression turned ugly. How were they supposed to fight? Roar! Right at that moment, an extremely crazy dragon roar came from behind them. They turned around and realized that it was the crazy corpse demon dragon. At this moment, the corpse demon dragon emitted an extremely terrifying aura. It was already standing at the peak of the quasi-supreme will realm. Corpse demon dragon, kill him, Sheila said excitedly. He looked at his corpse demon dragon as if he could already see the scene of him advancing to the supreme will realm in the future. At that moment, a faint voice rang out. It was Zhou Feit's voice. Corpse demon dragon, kill him. Shortly after, under Sheila's dumbfounded gaze, the corpse demon dragon trembled for a moment before turning around and looking at him with hatred and bloodthirstiness. Chapter 1608. Will Holy Artifact Formless Book. The Supreme Will Realm Expert Strikes. 1. Roar. The corpse demon dragon roared and turned into a blood-colored divine light that flew toward Sheila. Evil creature, how dare you betray your master and attack him? Sheila was furious and felt even more embarrassed. He had used the Tao of beast taming to become a quasi-supreme willpower realm expert. He was best known for his methods of controlling giant beasts. Now, in front of a great enemy, his behemoth actually turned around to deal with him. How many colleagues would laugh at him when he returned? Thinking of this, he said angrily to the corpse demon dragon that was charging at him. Be *starred. If I can make you, I can destroy you. Go. He grabbed all the beast bags on him and threw them all at the corpse demon dragon. As these beast bags flew over, a large number of Master God tier and Supreme God level beasts flew out of the beast bags and attacked the corpse demon dragon. At a glance, there were actually 13 Supreme God level beasts and hundreds of supremacies and God level beasts. These giant beasts attacked the corpse demon dragon together, and a life and death battle immediately erupted between the two sides. Do your best. Let's kill this traitor. Sheila's face was filled with anger. He formed hand seals with both hands and cast support abilities on the giant beasts summoned by him, helping them deal with the corpse demon dragon together. At the same time, he cast all kinds of negative abilities on the corpse demon dragon, reducing its combat power. As a result, the difference in strength between these beasts and the corpse demon dragon instantly decreased greatly. However, Sheila's expression did not improve. Instead, it became even gloomier. This was because he saw that the corpse demon dragon was still too powerful even though he was supporting his behemoth from the side. He, who had already reached the peak of the quasi-supreme willpower realm, was far from being injured by these beasts that only had the strength of Master God tier and ordinary supreme gods, even if his strength had been weakened to a certain extent because of Sheila. Now, he, a dragon, was actually suppressing these 13 supreme gods and 100 Master God tier beasts. He was a little anxious. He had already used all his means, but he was still unable to suppress the corpse demon dragon. If this continued, not to mention the behemoths that he had just released, he might even lose his life. Now, he could only wait for Monin and they to finish off Zhou Feit before letting they come back to help him. He looked at Monin and them. Then, he saw Monin looking at Zhou Feit, who had transformed into the 95 Supreme King Dragon God, with a helpless expression, as if he could not handle it. Sheila was stunned for a moment before he said angrily, Monin, what are you doing? Why are you still hiding at a time like this? Where's your formless book? Hurry up and take it out to deal with Zhou Feit. If anything happens to me, don't blame me for complaining to the Void Emperor. Upon hearing this, Monin frowned slightly. However, when he saw Sheila's situation, he could not help but laugh and shake his head. Sheila, to think that you often say that you have many giant beasts under your command, and their combined strength is higher than mine. I didn't expect you to be forced into a desperate situation by your own giant beasts today. Hee, when I go back, I must tell my other colleagues about your experience. That's fine too. Let me, the benevolent and compassionate one, personally rescue you. Sheila's face turned red when he heard this, but he also knew that he looked very ugly. Monen's smile was too normal. He could not even refute this guy's mockery of him. At the same time, Zhou Fight was also observing the scene below from the perspective of the 95 Supreme King Dragon God. The Corpse Demon Dragon's surrender was within his expectations. Even though the Corpse Demon Dragon was a quasi-supreme willpower realm expert, as long as he did not transcend the laws and reach the supreme willpower realm, he would definitely be restricted by the law of the dragon after all. This was a natural law restriction that was rooted in the bloodline of all dragons. Unless one broke through the limits of the natural law, they would not be able to break free. As for Zhou Fight's 95 Supreme King Dragon God body, as it had fused with many pure-blooded dragons, the legendary dragons even had the Dragon God of all life, a top-notch Dragon God body with the Supreme Dragon God bloodline from the alternate universe. Just this Bodhi's attainments in the law of the dragon had already surpassed the limits of the law. Under such a law of the dragon, unless his enemy was a dragon at the Supreme Will realm, he would definitely be suppressed by the law of the dragon's innate bloodline and laws. Therefore, the Corpse Demon Dragon, whose strength had increased greatly, turned to deal with his former master, just because of his words. A Corpse Demon Dragon at the peak of the quasi-supreme Will realm. If not for the fact that it was suppressed by my law of the dragon, I'm afraid my 95 Supreme King Dragon God body would have been injured by him. Zhou Fight thought to himself, of course, if there was really a victor, the victory would definitely be his. The 95 Supreme King Dragon God's undying body was supported by the power of all the God Spirit soldiers under him, divine power, divine spirit power, vitality, and even the power of will. It was just as its introduction said. Unless his army was completely wiped out, or the difference in strength between him and the other party was too great to make up for. Otherwise, it was definitely not something a Corpse Demon Dragon, who stood at the peak of the quasi-supreme Will realm, could defeat. Zhou Fight estimated that only a Supreme Will realm expert could defeat him, the 95 Supreme King Dragon God. He looked at his God Spirit army. He discovered that his divine army had actually obtained the supreme blessing bestowed by him, after transforming into the 95 Supreme King Dragon God. Chapter 1609. Will Holy Artifact Formless Book. The Supreme Will Realm Expert Strikes. 2. He casually clicked on the information of a soldier and looked at the Supreme Blessing. Supreme Blessing Name, Conqueror, Supreme Blessing Effect. When the soldiers under your command fight the enemy, their combat strength will increase by 10% for every 10 minutes of continuous battle, up to a maximum of 60%. When the Conqueror effect is stacked to 60%, the soldiers who have the Supreme Blessing will obtain Life Drain ability when fighting the enemy. They can continuously absorb the life force of the enemy in battle to recover their injuries. The Conqueror effect and Life Drain effect will disappear after 60 minutes. It's a practical blessing. Zhou Fight nodded in satisfaction. Not only could it increase one's combat strength, it could also increase one's recovery effect. This supreme blessing was simply perfect. Then, he came back to his senses and heard what Monen and Sheila had said. Yeah. Does this Monen still have a trump card that he hasn't used? Zhou Fight was a little surprised. Then, he saw Monen take out a blood-colored book from his storage treasure. Seeing that Zhou Fight was also looking at him, he smiled calmly and introduced. Few enemies have been able to drive me to this point where I have no choice but to use it. Common people's regal, you're very impressive, so we'll bestow you with the highest honor of dying. To be able to die in the hands of my ancestors' formless book. After he finished speaking, he calmly flipped through the formless book in his hand. Zhou Fight was naturally not stupid enough to let he calmly use his means. He immediately opened his dragon mouth, and saw a terrifying colorful dragon breath gather in his mouth. This dazzling dragon breath contained the power of the Abyss Dragon Breath, the Time Dragon Breath, the Elemental Dragon Breath, the Destruction Dragon Breath, the Star Dragon Breath, the Origin Dragon Breath, and various other top-notch Dragon God Dragon Breaths. When they gathered together, coupled with the power of the 95 Supreme King Dragon God that Zhou Fight had transformed into. The power of this dragon breath reached an earth-shattering level. Roar! An earth-shattering dragon roar rang out. The next second, a dazzling dragon breath spewed out of his mouth and struck Monin. Monin did not seem to care about this at all. As he flipped through the formless book in his hand, he muttered to himself. Common people's Regal's current strength is probably even stronger than Corpse Demon Dragon. It seems that an ordinary quasi-supreme willpower expert won't be able to deal with this guy. We can only invite that person's formless true blood. As he spoke, Zhou Fight's supreme dragon breath also descended on Monin's head. At that moment, the formless book in Monin's hand suddenly emitted a blood-colored light. This blood-colored light quickly formed a blood-colored light barrier around the book and Monin, enveloping them. When Zhou Fight's supreme dragon breath landed on the blood-colored light barrier, it was actually blocked by the blood-colored light barrier. It could not injure Monin at all. When Zhou Fight saw this, surprise flashed across his golden dragon eyes. He looked at the formless book in the other party's hand and felt the powerful aura emitted from it. He muttered, "Will holy artifact. This Monin actually has a will holy artifact." His expression turned solemn. Even though he also had a will holy artifact, it only had supplementary effects. Now that Monin had taken it out, it probably had an offensive effect. That's fine. Even if I die, it's just a clone. All the treasures on me can be directly thrown into the #1 treasure vault for safekeeping. There's no need to worry about them being lost. In that case, let's see what level my strongest combat strength has reached. Is it comparable to a supreme will? Facing Monin, who seemed to possess an offensive will holy artifact, not only was Zhou Fight not afraid, he even had the thought of challenging the limits of his combat strength. If it were Zhou himself, he probably wouldn't have made such a choice. However, Zhou Fight did it without hesitation. When Monin saw that Zhou Fight was not afraid, and was even eager to give it a try, his originally confident heart became uncertain. Why did this guy look like he was not afraid at all? Could it be that he couldn't tell that what I was about to use was a supreme will level technique? Monin took a deep breath and decided not to think about it anymore. Since he had already activated the formless book, no matter what methods Zhou Fight had, he had to take them. He had no choice but to shoot. Soon, he flipped to the page he wanted. A bloated being with dark purple skin and many complicated void engravings engraved on the surface of his skin was engraved on this page. It was drawn in blood and looked very realistic and bloody. Monin looked at him and gently tapped the existence. The next second, he felt that the Supreme God's divine power in his body was quickly consumed and fused into the existence on the page. In less than half a second, nearly 70% of the Supreme God's divine power in his body was completely absorbed. Monin's face was pale. His voice was weak and respectful. Ultimate Void Race Monin. Ancestor, Honorable Harlong, please take action to resolve the future threat of our ultimate void race. As soon as he finished speaking, the portrait of Honorable Harlong expanded rapidly. In just a moment, it left the paper and stood on it, becoming an ultimate void creature the size of a palm. He sized up his divine body and said unhappily, "Your supreme divine power is too weak. This divine body of mine only has 1/10,000th of the power I had at my peak. If it were used by Montague, I would have at least half the combat power I had at my peak. Why did he give you the holy artifact of his will? Isn't that a complete waste?" Monin revealed an awkward expression when he heard this. Then, he said solemnly, "Ancestor Meng Tua can't make a move. Otherwise, the Supreme Will also send an existence at the Supreme Will realm under his command. In order for me to successfully kill the Supreme Lord's reserve army, Ancestor boldly lent me the formless book and left a portrait of your true blood in it." "I see. Forget it. Let me, this dead ancestor, do my best for the future of our ultimate void clan." After saying that, Venerable Harlong looked at Zhou Fight with a flash of surprise in his eyes. What a young Supreme Lord Reserve army! At such a young age, his strength has already reached such a level. That's right. That's what makes it worth my while. Monin. Remember, I only have the power of one blow. After that, the rest is up to you. Monin immediately said solemnly, Don't worry, Venerable Harlong. As long as we get rid of this guy, we can easily destroy the remaining God Spirit army of the Supreme Will. Okay. Honorable Harlong nodded and flew into the sky. As he flew, he saw his divine body rapidly enlarge. 1 light year, 100 light years, 10,000 light years, 100,000 light years, 1 million light years. Venerable Harlong had grown to the size of 1,000,000 light years. At this moment, he could even see the end of the ultimate void battlefield with his vision. He looked down at Zhou Fight and grinned. Countless years ago, I perished in battle against other alternate universes. I thought I wouldn't wake up again, but now I can see you youngsters again. It's a pity that you and I are on different sides. Otherwise, I would really like to have a chat with the geniuses of your generation, to understand your views on cultivation. Harlong sighed in his heart. After experiencing true life and death, he had a new perspective on war and the struggle for benefits. But this didn't affect his killing intent. Common people's regal. Die at the hands of an old man like me. He opened its bloody mouth and bit Zhou Fight. Zhou Fight wanted to resist. However, he quickly realized that he couldn't even move. Ha 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 ha. Hearing Harlong's laughter, Zhou Fight tried one last time but failed. He simply put away all his treasures and waited quietly. Howl! Harlong ate Zhou Fight in one bite. Seeing this scene, the entire battlefield fell silent. In particular, the response of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's God Spirit Army was even greater. Everyone calmed down. Nothing happened to His Majesty. Just as the morale of the army was about to be shaken, Bai Yun's voice gave them peace of mind. When the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's God Spirit Army heard this, they immediately believed that nothing would happen to their emperor. They immediately continued to fight the enemy in front of them. On the other side, he enjoyed the flesh and blood of Zhou Fight in the beginning after eating Zhou Fight in one bite. But his expression quickly changed. Why doesn't it smell like destiny? What about the common people's regal? Chapter 1610, Victory. 1. Without my life, of course. But you won't get to find out. Behind Harlong, Zhou Fight looked at he calmly and said. Harlong suddenly turned around and saw Zhou Fight, who was completely unharmed. How can you be totally fine? Harlong looked shocked. Then, he didn't have time to think about the reason. He opened his huge mouth again. As he prepared to devour him, he said, I will definitely kill you before I leave. Zhou Fight's expression did not change as he watched this scene. When the shockingly huge mouth descended on his head with supreme might, it was as if it wanted to replicate the scene just now and devour him to death. And yet, just as Harlong was about to swallow Zhou Fight, his huge divine body suddenly turned into countless dark purple blood threads and dissipated. I can't. Accompanied by the dissipation of all the dark purple blood threads, Venerable Harlong whimpered indignantly. After the voice faded away, the battlefield returned to calmness. Zhou Fight turned to look at Monin, Sheila, and the 3 giant beasts under him. They saw they looking at themselves in shock, as if they had seen something that they could not believe. How come you're not dead? After Monin recovered from his shock, he shouted loudly, as if he could not accept the reality in front of him. That was a supreme will realm existence. Even if Venerable Harlong only had 1/10,000th of his strength at his peak, it was definitely not something a puny quasi-supreme will could resist. Not to mention that the common people's regal was only a newly advanced grade 1 supreme god. Sheila, who was far away, also stared at Zhou Fight, wanting to hear what reason he had to give. When Zhou Fight saw that they was so inquisitive, he smiled and said, Idiot. He suddenly transformed into the 95 Supreme King Dragon God, and slashed at Monin with the Xian Yuan divine sword in his mouth. Even though Monin was still shocked that the common people's regal could withstand a single attack from Harlong and not die, he was not careless when he saw Harlong's attack. He immediately took out a grade 2 supreme divine artifact that looked like a shield to defend against Harlong's attack. The distance between the two sides disappeared in the blink of an eye. The next second, The Xianyuan divine sword mentioned by the 95 Supreme King Dragon God slashed at Monen's shield. Boom 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 boom. Where the divine sword and shield collided, a series of explosions occurred in the void. The ultimate void within a radius of 10 light-years shattered, revealing the ultimate void great cosmos behind the ultimate void battleground. At a glance, one could even see other alternate universes. Soon, however, the shattered ultimate void began repairing itself. After the light of the void explosion dissipated, they saw the 95 Supreme King Dragon God and Monen wrestling with each other through the Xianyuan divine sword and the shield. Neither side was willing to give in. They were both using their swords and shields to determine the victor. It was as if the sword would break the opponent's shield first. It all depended on whether the shield could defend against his opponent's sword attacks. Sheila saw this situation and wanted to break out of the situation by joining in. However, the corpse demon dragon had been attacking him crazily, making him unable to be distracted at all. Sheila saw this situation and wanted to break out of the situation by joining in. However, the corpse demon dragon had been attacking he crazily, making him unable to be distracted at all. You have the will holy artifact, so you should be able to deal with the common people's regal, right? Sheila, who could not help at all, could only defend against the corpse demon dragon's attack while praying in his heart. However, in the next moment, he saw a scene that made him despair. Zhou Fight, who was fighting Monen, suddenly smiled sinisterly. Is this all you've got, Monen? What? Monen, who was resisting the power of Zhou Fight's Xianyuan divine sword with all his might, saw that Zhou Fight still had strength left. His expression changed drastically. The next second, an even more terrifying power erupted from the Xianyuan divine sword. And in the blink of an eye, it broke the Grade 2 Supreme Divine Artifact shield in front of Monen. Immediately after, the Xianyuan divine sword slashed at Monen without stopping, and he was beheaded in an instant. The moment Zhou Fight swept past Monen's body, he suddenly stretched out his dragon claw and grabbed Monen's head. Then, he twisted it forcefully, and a dark purple Supreme God lattice appeared in his hand. The moment Zhou Fight swept past Monen's body, he suddenly stretched out his dragon claw and grabbed Monen's head. Then, he twisted it forcefully, and a dark purple Supreme God lattice appeared in his hand. However, at this moment, he was only a body of will. After being trapped by Zhou Fight's Supreme God, he could not do anything at all. He could only watch as Zhou Fight controlled him at will. Suddenly, Zhou Fight seemed to have heard something and smiled. Spare you? It's not impossible. His expression turned solemn, and he said, Then, swear on your own will that from now on, you will leave the ultimate void race and officially join this Emperor's Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom, becoming a member of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's subjects. As long as you can do it, this Emperor will promise to let you live. Monen's expression changed. He hesitated for a long time, but when he saw Zhou Fight's increasingly dangerous gaze, he was immediately alarmed. He didn't dare to delay any longer and hurriedly agreed. He began to say that he was willing to join the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom and become a subject of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. When Zhou Fight felt the connection between him and the other party, a smile appeared on his face. From then on, other than the main body and clone, the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom finally had another quasi-supreme willpower realm expert. Moreover, the strength of this quasi-supreme willpower realm expert was considered not bad, even among all the quasi-supreme willpower realm experts. Chapter 1611, Victory. 2. Monen's strength was almost comparable to the Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade, who had been determined by the Supreme Will, and had a chance of advancing to the Supreme Will realm in the future. He had an additional general under his command. Zhou Fight was in a good mood. At this moment, after Monen announced that he had joined the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom, due to the influence of his Lord Talent, he immediately became much more respectful to Zhou Fight. Greetings, Your Majesty, he said respectfully. Zhou Fight nodded. Then, he opened the other party's attribute panel. When he saw that the other party's loyalty was only 80 points, He couldn't help but shake his head. As expected of a quasi-supreme will realm expert, at their level, even the mythical tier, unique lord talent, or even the supreme unique lord talent, had a very limited impact on them. Otherwise, if it were another master god tier, even if he had just joined, his loyalty would at least be above 90. I have to get my main body to get a supreme, the only level of lord talent to increase the loyalty of subjects. Otherwise, just relying on the peaceful times to stabilize and increase the loyalty of the new subjects would be somewhat unsafe. Zhou Feit thought to himself. The destructive power of a quasi-supreme will expert was simply too great. If they did not have a powerful method to ensure that they would not wreak havoc at a time and place that they did not notice, then it was necessary to create a supreme, the only level of lord talent that could increase the loyalty of the subjects. He shook his head and stopped thinking about it. Leave it to the main body to figure it out. Then, he turned his gaze and looked at Sheila, who was riding mini master god tier and supreme god level beasts to deal with the corpse demon dragon. Sheila had always been paying attention to the situation on Zhou Feit's side. When he saw Monin being killed by Zhou Feit, he had a bad premonition. When Sheila saw that Zhou Feit had noticed him, his heart sank. Now that he was entangled by the corpse demon dragon, he was in a state where he could neither fight nor run away. Now that the common people's regal was free to deal with him, what should he do next? He frantically racked his brains to think of a way to break out of this situation. Right at that moment, he saw Zhou Feit flying towards him, with the Xian Yuan divine sword in his mouth. As he flew over, he said loudly, Sheila, on account of your endless cultivation, this emperor can give you a chance to live. However, you want to announce that you will leave the ultimate void race and join this emperor's Blazing Sun divine kingdom. Are you willing to become a citizen of the Blazing Sun divine kingdom? Sheila was stunned for a moment before he said angrily, You want me to join the supreme will? Common people's regal, don't even think about it. I'm a god spirit under the void emperor in my life, and I'll be a dead soul under the void emperor in my death. I definitely won't join your doomed camp. He is a loyal servant of the Lord. Then this emperor will fulfill your wish. Become a dead soul before meeting your great void emperor. As long as you can still see him, Zhou Feit said coldly. Then, he turned into a golden stream of light and flew toward Sheila. Attack! 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 Stop this sword! Sheila felt an extremely terrifying sense of danger from Zhou Feit's sword. It was almost instinctive. He had all the behemoths under his command charge at Zhou Feit, hoping to stop his attack. However, Zhou Feit, who had transformed into the 95 Supreme King Dragon God, was comparable to a top-notch quasi-supreme willpower realm expert. At this moment, he was using the Xian Yuan divine sword in his mouth to execute the sword Dao that contained the power of the myriad methods Star Palm. The combination of the two made the power contained in his sword reach an incomparably terrifying level. A sword light flashed past. Sheila looked at the top of his head. Immediately after, an extremely resplendent sword light extended from his head to the lowest part of his divine body. Crack! His divine body was suddenly split into two. Even the supreme god divine spark in his body was split into two. As for Sheila's will that resided in the divine spark, it was even destroyed by Zhou Feit's sword. Quasi-supreme willpower realm expert, Sheila dead. When Zhou Feit saw this, he had an idea. The body of the dragon god that he had transformed into, which was 90,000 light-years tall, quickly disappeared. After the dragon god's body dissipated, Zhou Feit stood where the dragon god was. He raised his hand and waved. Sheila's body, which had been split into two, flew towards him. When they flew close, Zhou Feit made up his mind and chose to extract the corpse. The next second, billions of spoils of war erupted from Sheila's corpse and formed an ocean of loots around him. Zhou Feit was not surprised by this. He was in existence with the strength of a quasi-supreme will after all. It was normal for him to have many spoils of war. Just like he had said, if all his treasures were dropped from the number 1 treasure vault, the total number of treasures would be enough to fill 10 boundless universes, or even more. Therefore, he was not at all surprised by the loots in front of him. Let me see what good things a normal quasi-supreme realm existence has. Zhou Fight said with interest. Then, he first used a world ring to store all the treasures below the Master God tier level. To the current Zhou Fight, unless it was a Supreme God or a Supreme God level treasure, he would not be too interested. Chapter 16:12 Victory 3. He would throw these treasures below the level of Master God tier into the Divine Kingdom's treasury, for his Divine Kingdom to control. Then, he looked at the treasures in front of him, that were at least at the Grade 1 Supreme God level. 57,612 ordinary Supreme God level treasures, 511 Supreme Divine Artifacts, 72 Quasi-Supreme Realm treasures, 16 Quasi-Supreme Divine Artifacts. In addition, there are more than 200 Master God tier Giant Beast pets, as well as an injured and unconscious Grade 2 Supreme God Giant Beast pet. No wonder it didn't fight against the corpse demon dragon. It turns out that it was injured and unconscious. Zhou Fight nodded in satisfaction after reading it. This fellow's wealth was even richer than Becky's. As expected of the ultimate void race, known for their rich heritage, how many treasures did they salvage in the void? Zhou Fight could not help but feel curious again. Right at that moment, the 16 Supreme God level beasts and hundreds of Master God tier and Supreme God beasts flew over from afar with apprehensive expressions and stood obediently in front of Zhou Fight. Sir, Sheila is dead. We don't want to die. We want to be your subordinates. One of the Grade 4 Supreme Gods said nervously. Zhou Fight looked at their obedient appearance and could not help but laugh. This emperor killed your master. Are you really willing to submit to this emperor from the bottom of your hearts? You can't be saying that you want to submit to this emperor on the surface. But in reality, you're secretly looking for an opportunity to plot against this emperor, so that you can avenge your master, right? Of course we're not. Sheila would usually use violence to make us submit to him, and often hurt us with painful punishments. We've long been dissatisfied with him. Your Majesty, you killed him and saved us. We can't be more grateful to you. Why would we think of harming you? Yeah. These behemoths hurriedly explained to Zhou Fight, afraid that he would misunderstand them. At the same time, they looked at Zhou Fight with fear in their eyes. As pets, they naturally knew how strong Sheila and Monin were. However, even such a strong guy was easily defeated by this Supreme Lord Reserve Army. They simply did not dare to imagine that less than a year ago, this Supreme Lord Reserve Army was just an ordinary life form without any extraordinary tier powers. How did he do it? It was unbelievable. Say that you are willing to join the real Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom and become this Emperor's subject of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. This Emperor will spare your lives. Zhou Fight said calmly. Aye, my lord. They hurriedly agreed and immediately followed Zhou Fight's request. Zhou Fight smiled after hearing this. After today's battle, not only did he obtain a quasi-supreme willpower subordinate, he also obtained 16 supreme gods and 100 master gods. This was even without using the Son of Destiny and the Land of Earth, a minister of the king. Today's gains had truly exceeded his imagination. Right at that moment, the corpse demon dragon also flew in front of him. His aura was extremely weak, but H's eyes were still filled with anticipation as he looked at Zhou Fight. It was as if a child was looking at the father he was so proud of. Zhou Fight looked at the other party and felt that there was not much life left in his body. He said calmly, "You're about to die." Zhou Fight smiled and said without waiting for the corpse demon dragon to react. However, this emperor promises you that one day, this emperor will definitely revive you. You deserve it, kid. Upon hearing Zhou Fight's words, a satisfied smile appeared on corpse demon dragon's face. Then, the aura of his divine body suddenly dissipated before it fell into the ultimate void. The corpse demon dragon had fallen. Chapter 16:13 Battle Ends 1. Zhou Fight looked at the corpse demon dragon's fallen divine body and waved his hand, summoning his divine body over. Then, he took out a world ring and placed the corpse demon dragon's corpse inside before putting it away. He meant what he said. Since he had said that he wanted to revive him, he would definitely think of a way to revive him in the future. However, it wasn't the time yet. Even though he had many supreme gods under him, there was only one grade 1 supreme god, Thanatos, who had the ability to revive. And his strength as a grade 1 supreme god made it so that he could only revive a grade 1 supreme god for the time being. Not to mention the existence of a quasi-supreme will. Zhou Fight frowned slightly. He had to find some methods to revive supreme gods, or even quasi-supreme willpower experts, as soon as possible. Otherwise, the lives of the supreme gods under him would be in danger. He was already used to winning without any casualties, so he could not accept any casualties among his soldiers, especially the supreme gods. He knew that his idea was too strange. Who wouldn't die in war? But what to do? He had already been spoiled by the resurrection ability. Furthermore, Zhou Fight did not want to change his thoughts and habits. A war where no one died is strange, but isn't it good? In any case, he felt that a war where no one died was quite good. Zhou Fight stopped thinking and turned to look at the battlefield far away. Then, he nodded. Even though the number of troops brought by Monin and Sheila was terrifying, the combined army of gods under him and the Lord of 10,000 Evils were not much worse. In terms of the number of supreme gods, there was only a difference of 40 to 50. However, the supreme gods under him were all equipped with supreme divine artifacts. Their strength far exceeded their peers. Therefore, when they joined forces with the supreme gods under Lord of 10,000 Evils to deal with these enemies, they would at most feel a little strained and not be considered dangerous at all. He flipped his right hand and saw Monin's divine spark appear in his hand. Then, he took out more than 100 natural treasures that emitted a rich divine power of life from his left hand. With a thought, he saw that the life force inside the 100-odd natural treasures was instantly extracted by Zhou Fight with his powerful willpower. After some purification, they turned into a large amount of ownerless and pure life force that gathered on Monin's divine spark. Monin, pay attention to reconstructing your divine body, Zhou Fight said in a deep voice. Yes, Your Majesty. In the divine spark, Monin's expression turned solemn. He tried his best to release the power of his will and absorb the ownerless divine power of life in the outside world. With the help of these ownerless life forces, his divine body quickly began to condense. In less than a moment, Monin recovered more than half of his divine body. Zhou Fight clicked his tongue. The divine body of a quasi-supreme willpower realm expert required a lot of life divine power. These 100 or so natural treasures were enough to mold the bodies of more than 10 grade 4 supreme gods. But now, they were only enough to mold more than half of Monin's divine body. He shook his head and did not mind. He took out more than 300 natural treasures and repeated the previous steps to reconstruct Monin's quasi-supreme will divine body. Finally, when more than half of the life divine power of these 300 heavenly treasures was absorbed by Monin, Monin's quasi-supreme will realm divine body finally condensed again. However, even though he had the divine body of a quasi-supreme will, his divine spirit realm was only at the lowest grade 1 supreme god level. Seeing this, Zhou Fight first ate the remaining divine power of life as if he was eating candy under Monin's dumbfounded gaze. Then, he took out a total of 1,000,000 grade 3 supreme god realm crystals. Come, absorb as much as you want. This emperor wants to see how many grade 3 supreme god realm crystals, a quasi-supreme willpower realm expert, like you can absorb to recover your quasi-supreme willpower realm strength. Zhou Fight said with interest. Monin swallowed his non-existent saliva. Why did he have the illusion that he was being used as an experimental evaluation material? He did not dare to think too much and immediately controlled the power of his will to absorb these grade 3 supreme god realm crystals. A moment later, Zhou Fight realized that he had underestimated the total divine power contained in these 1,000,000 grade 3 supreme god realm crystals. At the same time, he had overestimated the amount of divine power needed by quasi-supreme willpower realm experts. This Monin had only absorbed about 200,000 grade 3 supreme god realm divine crystals, and raised his strength back to the quasi-supreme will realm. Seeing this, he put away the remaining supreme god divine crystals. Monin, on the other hand, was overjoyed. He clearly felt that he had recovered to his peak strength. No, it was not just his peak strength, because he was a rebuilt divine body. Some old hidden injuries had all disappeared. Monin even felt that he was stronger than he was at his peak. He looked at Zhou Fight and rubbed his hands nervously. "Your Majesty, my world ring." Zhou Fight did not say anything else and threw his world ring to Monin. After Monin received it, it immediately recognized him as its master again. Then his will entered. Then, he realized that most of the assets in his world rings had not disappeared. Even his top-notch supreme divine artifacts were quietly placed in the world rings. Their positions had not changed. He even saw a complete set of grade 4 supreme divine artifacts that were higher level and more suitable for him than his original supreme divine artifact in his world ring. Chapter 1614, Battle Ends. 2. Monin was certain that if he changed into this top-notch supreme divine artifact, his strength would definitely be at least 30% stronger than before he reconstructed his divine body. This supreme divine artifact was undoubtedly bestowed to him by His Majesty. Monin was very grateful to His Majesty. However, his gratitude quickly disappeared because he realized that there was a treasure missing from his world ring. It was also the only missing treasure, that holy artifact of his ancestor, Formless Book. Monin opened his mouth. He carefully glanced at Zhou Fight, who looked normal with mixed feelings. In the end, he did not say that he wanted the Formless Book back. He consoled himself. Is that something you can control? He had already lost the Formless Book to His Majesty. Clearly, His Majesty was more suitable to control the Formless Book than him. He chose to forget that the Formless Book originally belonged to his ancestor. Right at that moment, he discovered that His Majesty, looking at the battlefield below, suddenly raised his right hand. Shortly after, a soft voice sounded. "All the people in the world are the king's subjects." Swoosh! A 9-colored domain instantly spread out in all directions with Zhou Fight as the center. In the blink of an eye, it covered an area of 1,000,000 light years and enveloped the armies of both sides on the battlefield. Then, Zhou Fight instantly felt that half of the supreme divine power in his body instantly disappeared. The next second, the ultimate Void Race army on the battlefield instantly gave up on fighting. They looked in Zhou Fight's direction with a fanatical expression before bowing to him. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Tens of billions of ultimate Void God spirits, 5 billion ultimate Void True God tiers, more than 30,000 ultimate Void Master God tiers, and 12 ultimate Void Supreme Gods said respectfully in unison. This scene shocked all the God spirits present. Even the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's God Spirit Army, which was familiar with His Majesty's methods, was stunned. Wasn't he only able to instigate half of the insight defection in the past? When did its effect become 100% now? No, not all of them. Bai Yin and a few supreme gods with good eyesight noticed that most of the supreme gods, who were still alive in the Ultimate Void Army, did not surrender. Only the 12 Ultimate Void Supreme Gods surrendered. There were still 30 to 40 supreme gods who were still resisting. As for the remaining supreme gods, they were naturally destroyed by Bai Yin and gang, even though they had also paid a certain number of casualties. In Bai Yin's opinion, these casualties were completely worth it. Kill. Their momentum is gone. Destroy these remaining supreme gods. However, we don't have to be anxious. We can slowly exhaust them to death. They can't escape or resist. Seeing this, Bai Yin immediately ordered. These remaining supreme gods were already turtles in a jar. They had surrounded they with an army. As long as they spent some time, it was very simple to exhaust them to death. The supreme gods naturally understood this logic. They immediately led their armies to surround them, and then continuously attacked these trapped ultimate void supreme gods, beginning to exhaust their divine power and willpower bit by bit. When their divine power and willpower were completely exhausted, it would be the end of them. At the same time, Zhou Fight also looked at the notification of the law skill that appeared in front of him. A text notification appeared. Lord Law Skill Hint. You have used the Grade 1 Supreme God Law Skill. Land of Earth, a Minister of the King. You have successfully changed the thoughts and wills of the life forms in the domain, and turned them into subjects loyal to you. Congratulations! You have obtained the loyalty of 51,223,108,371 Ultimate Void God Spirits. 5,181,037,123 Ultimate Void True God Tiers. 31,931 Ultimate Void Master God Tiers. And 12 Ultimate Void Supreme Gods. Zhou Fight nodded in satisfaction after reading it. The use of the Land of Earth, a minister of the king, directly gave him so many god spirits. And what he spent was only some insignificant supreme god divine power. There was only one word to describe this outcome. It was a huge profit. Besides, I still haven't used the one chance of Son of Destiny. Zhou Fight's lips curled up. With the Son of Destiny in the Land of Earth, a minister of the king, the growth of the forces under him would increase again. Then, he glanced at the battlefield where the army was, and realized that Bai Yun was leading the other supreme gods to attack the remaining 30-odd Ultimate Void Supreme Gods. He looked at Monin. Monin, can you convince them to submit to this emperor? He asked. Hearing this, a troubled expression appeared on Monin's face, but he still nodded firmly. Even though it's unlikely, I can give it a try. Go. Zhou Fight nodded. Monin nodded and turned into a stream of light that flew towards the battlefield. A moment later, Monin returned with injuries of all sizes. He looked ashamed and said, Your Majesty, I failed. They are very firm in their belief in the Void Emperor. I tried my best, but they were unwilling to submit to you, Your Majesty. They even said that I was a shameful traitor and came up to besiege me. If Legion Commander Bai Yun hadn't led the other supreme gods to rescue me, I'm afraid I would have died there. Zhou Fight held back his laughter and said, You've worked hard. This reward is for you. Go back and recuperate. He threw a world ring to Monin as he spoke. After Monin received it, his will entered and took a look. His eyes immediately lit up. In this world ring were a large number of supreme god-level divine medicines that could be used to heal the injuries that he had suffered. Furthermore, even if he used these divine medicines to treat his injuries this time, the remaining divine medicines were enough for him to experience 3 to 4 life and death battles in the future. Then, they would be more than enough to treat him. His Majesty was really a godly tycoon. Thank you for the reward, Your Majesty, he said respectfully. The loyalty on the interface increased by several points. This emperor will not mistreat any subordinate who serves this emperor. Zhou Fight said calmly. Monin was very excited when he heard this. He increasingly felt that joining the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom and becoming a subordinate of the common people's regal was the right choice. At this moment, he saw Zhou Fight looking down at the battlefield. Monin, this time, bring these supreme gods together and cooperate with Bai Yun, and them to eliminate all these fellows who are unwilling to submit. Don't hold back, he ordered calmly. Yes, Your Majesty. Monin nodded. He knew that this was a chance for him to prove his allegiance. His Majesty's attitude towards his, in the future, would probably depend on his performance this time. He looked at the Ultimate Void Supreme God below. Some of these supreme gods were once his enemies, some were his friends, some had worked together before. And even though they did not know each other, they had seen each other in the sanctuary. However, no matter what their identities were in the past, it didn't matter now. All Monin knew was that they were about to welcome their death. Kill, destroy these stubborn enemies, Monin ordered. Then, he immediately charged towards these Ultimate Void Supreme Gods who resisted. The other Supreme Gods and Master God tiers followed closely behind and faced the enemy together. The two sides soon engaged in battle. After watching Monin fight with all his might and mercilessly for a while, Zhou Fight nodded in his heart. It seemed that 80 points of loyalty could still be used. However, it was still safer to increase his loyalty to more than 90 points. And with the addition of a quasi-supreme will realm expert like Monin, it was easier for Bai Yun and them to suppress these ultimate void supreme gods. In less than an hour, they had completely eliminated these ultimate void supreme gods who resisted. We actually won. The Lord of 10,000 Evils came to Zhou Feit's side, his face filled with disbelief. He looked at Zhou Feit with a blank expression. How did this guy do it? They were two quasi-supreme willpower realm experts, but now one of them had died, and the other had directly become his subordinate. The Lord of 10,000 Evils could not help but recall the day he saw Zhou Feit. At that time, Zhou Feit was not even a supreme god who was clearly envious when he looked at him and his subordinates. But now, he was the one who was envious, but the other party had become the person he was envious of. Is this a different guy from the common people's regal I knew at the beginning? The Lord of 10,000 Evils even had such thoughts. Chapter 16:15. Supreme Will Realm Meng Tuo. Eternal Immortal Realm. 1. Zhou Feit looked at the confused expression on Lord of 10,000 Evils' face and smiled. What are you looking at, Brother Demon Lord? Nothing. Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled bitterly. I just feel that you're growing too quickly. I feel that in the blink of an eye, I won't be able to catch up to you. He's far behind you in terms of strength and strength. Isn't that a good thing? Zhou Feit smiled. The Lord of 10,000 Evils was stunned. He heard Zhou Feit say, You and I are brothers. If my strength and faction become stronger, it will naturally be beneficial to Brother Demon Lord. Is there a downside? The Lord of 10,000 Evils immediately laughed. That's true. The higher the strength of the common people's regal, the only disadvantage for him was that the chances of him obtaining the Supreme Lord from the other party were lower. But the Lord of 10,000 Evils had already recognized reality, be it to the common people's regal, God King Heaven Punishment, or the Spring Autumn Dharma Lord. There was already an extremely obvious difference in strength between him and them, especially compared to the latter two. The difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. In fact, the probability of him obtaining the Supreme Lord's inheritance was very small. Now there was another common people's regal who was close to those two fellows, but it didn't seem to matter to him. At the thought of this, the Lord of 10,000 Evils felt enlightened. Zhou Feit smiled when he saw this, and did not say anything else. He turned around and ordered the battlefield to be cleaned up. Then, he led the army and flew straight to the other void mystic realms. Their goal today was a total of 8 void mystic realms. Now just the White Dawn void mystic realm alone had delayed them for so long. They had to hurry up and conquer the remaining void mystic realms. Fortunately, after the Land of Earth, a minister of the king, the strength of his forces increased again. In the following period of time, conquering the remaining 7 void mystic realms should not be a problem. At the same time, just as the ultimate void god spirit army, led by Monin and Sheila, was completely destroyed, the holy domain of the ultimate void race. In the holy temple, the void emperor was still resting on his holy throne with his eyes closed. The more than 2,000 ultimate void supreme gods below were all looking at the dark silver ceiling above their heads. On the ceiling that originally had more than 2,000 dark silver tiles, more than 100 tiles were completely shattered, causing a large portion of the dark silver ceiling to be damaged, making the holy temple seem like a tattered holy temple. These 2,000 supreme gods understood the meaning of this scene very well. This meant that more than 100 ultimate void supreme gods had died. Moreover, among the more than 100 damaged dark silver tiles, there was a huge tile that was 4 to 5 times larger than the other ordinary tiles. It represented the position of the quasi-supreme willpower realm expert of the ultimate void race. And at this moment, its damage also meant that one of the quasi-supreme will realm experts of the ultimate void race had died. That was an ultimate member of the void race, who had the chance to advance to the supreme will realm in the future. Such an existence that concerned the rise and fall of their race actually died. How could they not be furious? The remaining 1,900 ultimate void supreme gods discussed among themselves. As time passed, the discussion of them became louder and louder. In the end, The entire Void Holy Temple was very noisy because of their discussion, like a market. A small number of Ultimate Void Supreme Gods who remained silent were used to this. When the Ultimate Void race, they invaded the great cosmos, they would have such internal discussions once they encountered a difficult enemy. To put it nicely, this was freedom of speech. To put it bluntly, it was poor organization and discipline. The key was that the Void Emperor rarely cared about their matters. As a result, it was a custom that they had preserved until now. Just as the discussion of these Ultimate Void Supreme Gods became more and more intense, the Void Emperor finally said slowly, "Quiet." His voice resounded throughout the entire sanctuary, and the Ultimate Void Supreme Gods instantly fell silent. Even though they had extremely free speech, when the Void Emperor spoke, they would also be very obedient. Right at that moment, the figure of a supreme willpower expert of the Ultimate Void race slowly appeared within the sacred hall. He appeared in the form of a projection. His main body was clearly not in the Holy Hall, or even in the Ultimate Void battlefield. "Greetings, Your Majesty," Meng Tuo, a supreme willpower practitioner, Meng Tuo, said respectfully. "Meng Tuo, you're here about your junior, aren't you?" The Void Emperor said. "Yes, Your Majesty. I'm here for my descendant, Monin." Meng Tuo's tone was a little agitated. "Monin is the junior, who is most likely to advance to the Supreme Will realm among my descendants. In order to accumulate experience and credit for Monin, I specially lent my treasure, the Formless Book, to him. I didn't expect that not only did he fail to return from crusading against that common people's regal, he even died there. The Formless Book also fell into the hands of the enemy. Your Majesty, I can't accept this. I will avenge my child. I want my treasure back." Meng Tuo roared. Be it Monin or the Formless Book, they were both things that Meng Tuo valued the most. How could he not be angry now that both of them had left his side? The surrounding Ultimate Void Supreme Gods were also in an uproar. It was fine if Monin's grandson died, but the Formless Book was a will-holy artifact. It must not fall into another's hands. Chapter 1616. Supreme Will Realm Meng Tuo. Eternal Immortal Realm. 2. Even the Ultimate Void race did not have many holy artifacts of this level. Now, they actually fell into the hands of that common people's regal. The Ultimate Void Supreme Gods immediately showed signs of arguing again. "Calm down, Monin." The Void Sovereign's voice was dignified. It once again suppressed the voices of the god spirits. After the gods calmed down, he slowly said, "Your Formless Book did fall into the hands of that common people's regal. But your child Monin did not die." "Monin didn't die?" Meng Tuo was stunned. "Then why didn't he respond to my call?" "Monin almost died once. But later on, he was rebuilt by the common people's regal and saved. As for why he didn't reply to your call, the reason is very simple. He has already become a loyal subordinate of the common people's regal." The Void Emperor said indifferently. "No way," Meng Tuo immediately retorted. "My child, how can he submit to the common people's regal?" "Would I lie to you?" The Void Emperor said unhappily. "Your Majesty, you've misunderstood. Why would I think that? I just find it a little difficult to accept the truth," Meng Tuo hurriedly said in fear. Even though he was a supreme willpower realm expert, he naturally could not compare to the Void Emperor. He did not dare, or was unwilling to offend the Void Emperor. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something and shouted, "I got it. I heard that the common people's regal is best at bewitching people. Many supreme gods in our Ultimate Void camp have been bewitched by him with such methods. Monin must have been bewitched to be under the command of the common people's regal, because of this method." He had a solemn expression, as if he approved of his speculation. However, what the Void Emperor said next froze him in place. He said, "Monin wasn't bewitched by the common people's regal, but because he was afraid of death." "I don't believe it." Meng Tuo's face turned red. "Why would my child do such a thing?" The Void Emperor glanced at Meng Tuo and replayed the scene on the battlefield. When Meng Tuo saw that Monin had been beaten into a supreme god divine spark by Zhou fight, and then begged Zhou Fight to surrender inside the Supreme God Divine Spark. He immediately froze on the spot. When the other Supreme Gods saw this, they did not dare to speak, afraid that they would anger Meng Tuo. The Void Emperor looked at him indifferently. Speaking of which, this was the first ultimate Void Race God Spirit that was willing to take the initiative to surrender to the common people's regal. When the other ultimate Void Race God Spirits faced the Zhou War, other than being used by Zhou Fight to use the Sun of Destiny and the Land of Earth, a minister of the king to instigate incite defection, the rest would fight to the death. But when it came to Monin, it was terrible. The Void Emperor shook his head inwardly. After a long time, Meng Tuo suddenly knelt on the ground and gritted his teeth. Reporting to your majesty, I know my mistake. Am willing to redeem myself and personally fight. Am willing to kill the common people's regal and snatch back the treasure, the formless book. Am also willing to personally kill Monin, the traitor who humiliated our ultimate Void race. You're oversimplifying. The Void Emperor said indifferently. The common people's regal only has the strength of the quasi-supreme Wu realm. Even if we send our subordinates to deal with him, we can only rely on quasi-supreme Wu realm experts to deal with him. Otherwise, if I send you, the Supreme Will similarly send supreme willpower experts to deal with you. If I reinforce another supreme Will realm, the other party will also reinforce another supreme Will realm. Initially, it was just a battle between the juniors. The outcome would be decided by the juniors. Once an existence at our level interferes, it's very likely to turn into a battle at the Supreme Will realm. In the end, I, the Supreme Will, and the Crimson Overlord might even personally participate. When the time comes, even if we want to stop, we might not be able to. Our ultimate Void race is not ready to risk our lives to fight the Supreme Will, them. I'm not ready for that either. The Void Emperor said inwardly. Meng Tuo was instantly speechless. The ultimate Void race of them was indeed not prepared to start a war with the Supreme Great Cosmos and the Crimson Great Cosmos. This was because a portion of their troops were still fighting against the wills of other universes. The battle over there was much more intense than here. Even unmatched Will realm existences personally participated. It was unlike the ultimate Void battleground, where even a quasi-supreme Will realm existence rarely appeared. So we're just gonna let it go. Meng Tuo was very indignant. Of course not, the Void Emperor said lightly. In all these years, common people's regal is the first enemy to make us beasts suffer so many losses. If we give up just like that, the enemies of the other universes will only think that we've become weaker. At that time, we'll encounter an even greater danger. In order to prove our strength, the common people's regal must die. I can also agree to let you assassinate the common people's regal. However, you have to pretend, disguise as a quasi-supreme Will realm expert. Only then can we kill the common people's regal, and not cause a full-scale war with the Supreme Will. Disguise. Meng Tuo's expression became troubled. My disguise technique should be easily seen through by the Supreme Will, right? Your disguise will naturally be easily seen through by the Supreme Will. But mine won't, the Void Emperor said. Meng Tuo was delighted when he heard that. With His Majesty personally taking action, the common people's regal's life will definitely be easy to capture. I've helped you as much as I can. Meng Tuo, your junior has already disappointed me once. I hope you won't disappoint me again. Otherwise, you can go to the Yazan battlefield. The Void Emperor said indifferently. When Meng Tuo heard this, he immediately panicked. The Yazan battlefield was an ancient battlefield left behind by a true invincible existence that had reached the fusion of illusionary and reality, and above the willpower. That place was extremely dangerous. Even unmatched Will realm cultivators could die if they entered. Only by entering with willpower could they live comfortably, but there was also a certain risk. However, even so, there were still many wills that came to that ancient battlefield one after another. Why? This was because it was said that there was a supreme inheritance left behind by Your Excellency's subjugator on the battlefield. Whoever obtained that inheritance might even be able to fuse illusionary and reality, let alone willpower. Apart from that, There were also a large number of inheritances of the Supreme Will Realm, and the inheritances left behind by some willpower powerhouses. Therefore, many willpower realm existences still went forward to take risks, even if they knew that the battlefield of the sub-venerables was extremely dangerous, and there were all kinds of ancient traps, mechanisms, and dangerous places. Meng Tuo had been there once, but he died. If not for the fact that his descendant had spent more than half of his wealth to invite the Void Emperor to revive him, he would probably still be dead. Hence, after his resurrection, Meng Tuo never went to the battlefield of the Quasi-Zun again. His strength was not strong among all the Supreme Will Realm experts to begin with. Now that he had lost the Supreme Treasure, the Formless Book, wouldn't he be courting death if he went to the sub-supremacy battlefield under such circumstances? He did not have that much wealth to ask the Void Emperor to revive him again. I'll do it well. I promise it won't fail. Meng Tuo immediately promised. I hope so, the Void Emperor said indifferently. Then Meng Tuo took his leave. After Meng Tuo left, the Void Emperor's figure gradually disappeared, and he arrived at a silver palace. This was his own palace, and no outsiders were allowed to enter. The Void Emperor often cultivated and thought here. However, he had not come here to cultivate or think. He took out an incomplete illusory seal and muttered to himself. Illusionary legendary Tear Sage seal, where are you? If it weren't for you, why would I stand up to those two guys in this crappy place for so long? They probably already guessed that I had other motives. Ugh. Eternal Immortal Realm. When can I reach that level? Chapter 16-17. Heart of Darkness. Heaven Key. 1. At the same time, in the Land of Dusk, the quasi-supreme will of the Heavenly Blade was fighting more than 10 existences of the Illusionist clan in a canyon. This group of Illusionist clan members had strange methods, and were good at playing with people's hearts. They were also extremely skilled in willpower attacks. However, as a saber expert, the will of the Heavenly Blade quasi-supreme Will Realm was like a saber that could cut through anything. The last thing they were afraid of was the sinister methods and will attacks of these illusionary race. Therefore, the Illusionist clan clearly had the advantage in numbers, but they could not do anything to the supreme will of the Heavenly Blade. After a while, the quasi-supreme will of the Heavenly Blade slashed apart the dozen or so powerhouses of the Illusionist clan, who were also at the quasi-supreme Will Realm. Then, he said calmly to them, "Is that all you've got? This is far from enough if you want to kill me." The quasi-supreme willpower realm experts of the illusionary race were furious and cursed. However, the words that they scolded were very powerless because they really could not do anything to the Heavenly Blade quasi-supreme will. The Heavenly Blade quasi-supreme will realm shook their heads expressionlessly when they saw they break through their defenses. "I guess you're not the right people for me to hone my skills with. Then I'll give you a ride." After saying that, he raised the divine knife in his hand and covered half of his face, leaving only half of his cold and heartless face. In the next breath, the divine saber in his hand suddenly emitted an infinite saber beam. Willpower skill, heaven-slaying saber. Swoosh. When the light dissipated, they saw that the dozen or so quasi-supreme, Will Realm Illusionist clan members, had already fallen to the ground, and were no longer breathing. He killed more than 10 quasi-supreme Will Realm cultivators with a single slash. Seeing this, Heaven Blade nodded. His strength was indeed much higher than before he came to the Land of Dusk. There were many experts in the Land of Dusk. Quasi-supreme Will Realm experts often appeared. The Supreme Will was right. This was indeed the most suitable place for him to practice his saber. As long as he trained here for a period of time, he had a high chance of advancing to the quasi-supreme Will Realm. At the thought of this, he couldn't help but think of Zhou again. "I wonder how the Regal is doing," he thought to himself. He thought about how the full-strength attack he had given the Regal last time had been used up not long after. The sense of urgency in his heart intensified, and he tightened his grip on the saber. No way. He wanted to find stronger opponents to experience life and death. Only then could he advance to the true Supreme Will realm as soon as possible. When the time came, in the ultimate void beyond the myriad worlds, he also had the right to protect Zhou, just as he wanted to leave. An existence that emitted an infinite pure white light appeared in front of him. He had a jade-like face and a gentle expression, emitting a great maternal glow. It was the Supreme Will. "Greetings, Lord Supreme Will." Heaven Blade was stunned and immediately said respectfully. The Supreme Will nodded and smiled. "I just saw it. You've made great progress. It's all thanks to your Excellency's nurturing. Otherwise I wouldn't have improved so much." The Heavenly Blade said sincerely. The Supreme Will not only instructed God King Heaven Punishment to pay attention to him, but also to remember to save him, if he encountered danger while he was training here. The Supreme Will would even occasionally personally descend to guide he on his path. The reason why he had improved so much during this period of time was not only because he was considered talented, but also because of the guidance of the Supreme Will. "I'm not the only one who contributed to your great improvement. I saw that the pills given to you by the common people's regal saved you several times." The Supreme Will laughed. "Yes, His Majesty's pills saved me many times. Without His Majesty's pills to save my life, I'm afraid I would have died somewhere in the land of dusk by now." The Heaven Blade said seriously. In order to pursue the path of the saber, he would find a few, a dozen, or even dozens of supreme divine level experts, or even quasi-supreme wills to attack him every time. Such a siege could undoubtedly increase the pressure on him. In the face of a huge life and death crisis, he could seek an opportunity to break through and improve. But you can't walk by the river without getting your shoes wet. Occasionally, Heaven's Blade would misjudge the enemy's strength. When he encountered an enemy he couldn't resist, he would be forced into a desperate situation by the enemy. He might even be seriously injured and almost die. If he didn't have those supreme God-level divine medicines given to him by the common people's regal, allowing him to recover time and time again and escape, he wouldn't have the confidence to carry out life and death battles to improve himself. The Supreme Will smiled and said, "I came here today to let you know something." The Heaven Blade was stunned. What was so important that an existence like the Supreme Will would personally come to remind him? "You'll see." The Supreme Will smiled and waved his right hand gently. An illusory projection appeared in front of the Heavenly Blade. Heavenly Blade looked over with great curiosity. Then, he saw Zhou fighting two quasi-supreme willpower experts alone. Among them, Monin belonged to the kind of top quasi-supreme willpower experts who were on par with him. The Heaven Blade was stunned seeing this. How long had it been? His Majesty's strength had already increased to this extent? Then, when he saw Monin take out the formless book and summon the true blood incarnation of a supreme will, he began to worry about Zhou Fight's safety again. And when he saw that Zhou Fight had withstood the other party's attack without suffering any damage, he immediately fell silent. Chapter 16:18. Heart of Darkness. Heaven Key. 2. At this moment, he had already realized His Majesty's strength had actually already surpassed his own. Then what was the point of working so hard? Don't wait for a while longer. He had yet to become a Supreme Will Realm expert, but His Majesty had already become a Supreme Will Realm expert. Heavenly Blade. Do you think you might not be able to catch up to the growth of the common people's regal? The Supreme Will looked at the conflicted and confused expression on the other party's face, and asked with a smile. The Heavenly Blade was silent for a moment before nodding. "You don't have to worry about that." The Supreme Will said, "Even though common people's regal's current strength is already a top-notch quasi-Supreme Will Realm existence, there are almost no existences below the Supreme Will Realm that can defeat him. However, his true strength realm is still only that of a Grade 1 Supreme God. He is still very, very far from the existence of the Supreme Will Realm. As for you, I dare to conclude that you will definitely enter the Supreme Will Realm faster than the common people's regal, and can protect him from there. Don't think that he is stronger than you now. Your own efforts won't mean much. He only doesn't have many enemies at the quasi-supreme will realm, but in the supreme will realm, or even in the realm of will transcendence, there are still existences who want him dead. Facing the methods of such an existence, even the common people's regal with many methods can't escape death. And the only way for him to survive is through you. Hearing this, Tian Ren's divine body trembled. His eyes lit up again, and a sense of urgency rose in his heart. That's right. From the illusory projection, His Majesty was indeed unrivaled in the quasi-supreme will realm. However, it was precisely because of this that enemies at the supreme will realm would begin to target their emperor. And only by advancing to the supreme will realm could he protect His Majesty at that time. I see, my lord. The supreme will nodded and said, I'm telling you this news because you're pushing yourself too hard. Advancing to the supreme will realm is not something that can be done quickly if you want to pursue speed. Settle down, feel your knife, and think about your path. Sometimes the slowest path may be the fastest. Thank you for your guidance, Your Excellency. This junior understands. Heaven Blade pondered for a moment before saying respectfully. The Supreme will nodded slightly and disappeared in front of Heaven Blade. Feel my knife, think my way. After the Heavenly Blade saw the Supreme will leave, its gaze landed on the saber in its hand again, as it thought about the Supreme Will's words. After a long time, he suddenly put away the saber and carried it on his back. He turned around and walked towards a distant mountain peak. He wanted to be alone for a while and quietly think about his Tao. At night, Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils led the army back. After a day of relentless fighting, they finally broke through the other 7 void mystic realms. At this point, the territories of the Lotus Flame War territories and the Fire Poison War were completely under Zhou Fight's control. There were no longer any hidden dangers. After he and Lord of 10,000 Evils returned to the Demon Lord base planet, Lord of 10,000 Evils held a grand celebration ceremony and gathered all the god spirits on the entire Demon Lord base planet and all the god spirit armies from both sides to participate in this ceremony. The entire ceremony went very smoothly. All the god spirits ate and drank happily. As Zhou Fight chatted and drank with Lord of 10,000 Evils, he also diverted his attention to open his information panel. He looked over. User, Lord of the Blazing Sun, Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army, Ultimate Void Battleground. The second leader of the Supreme Will Camp, Military Merits. 22 million Military Merits Mission Medal. 20 Supreme God Mission Medals. Other rewards. 2 Universal Race Divine Artifacts. Zhou Fight nodded in satisfaction after reading it. Other rewards. 2 Universal Race Divine Artifacts. However, there was no hurry. He could look at the 2 Racial Divine Artifacts rewarded by the mission first. The first Racial Divine Artifact was a heart-shaped Racial Divine Artifact. He was even beating. If one listened closely, they could hear the clear and powerful sound of a beating heart. The second Racial Divine Artifact was a golden key. He looked over. When new subjects are born, there's a 20% chance of awakening light-type talent. It will increase the darkness-type immunity of the subject's stances to reduce 20% darkness-type damage. Race Divine Artifact. Heaven Key. Beginner Grade Race Divine Artifact. A universal Race Divine Artifact that has the ability to open any divine artifact with the characteristic of lock. After the Lord recognizes it as its master, the probability of its subjects comprehending lock-picking techniques when facing an ownerless item increases by 1%. It increases the talent of the subject's shadow law. When a new subject is born, there's a 10% chance of awakening the talent Skillful Hands or Shadow Hiding. After Zhou Fight looked at the 2 Universal Race Divine Artifacts, he could not help but think. The Heart of Darkness was fine. It was the Racial Divine Artifact that he needed the most to increase the immunity of subjects. However, the other general-purpose Racial Divine Artifact, the Key of Heaven, felt strange no matter how he looked at it. His ability to activate any divine artifact with the characteristics of lock was undoubtedly very useful. However, the later abilities were a little misleading. Hands plus Shadow Hiding. Hiss. The thief was overjoyed. Zhou Fight subconsciously did not want it to acknowledge him as its master. However, as the saying goes, one has a sharp blade and killing intent arises. There were some things that one could not think too much about when they did not have them. But once they did, it was easy to think too much. He did not want a group of despicable thieves to be born among his subjects. There were so many racial divine artifacts in the Supreme God Realm Monument. He would not feel regretful about missing out on such a beginner-grade racial divine artifact. However, he quickly thought of something that made he decide to recognize this racial divine artifact as his master. He recalled his racial talent in the peaceful times. Even though the peaceful times was only an extraordinary tier lord talent, it allowed Zhou's blazing sun divine kingdom to prosper and be stable. Politics were clear. The people lived and worked in peace. They were simple, kind, and hardworking. Coupled with the enhancement of the other lord talents, titles, and racial divine artifacts, the subjects of the blazing sun divine kingdom might not all be saints, but they were at least good people. This was very unimaginable to the subjects of the other territories. However, with the enhancement of many lord talents, racial divine artifacts, and titles, the blazing sun divine kingdom really did it. Compared to the war and chaos outside, the blazing sun divine kingdom was definitely worthy of its name as the peaceful times. Its reputation had even spread. It was not only the subjects from other places in the high continent that were migrating to the blazing sun divine kingdom. They wanted to become subjects of the blazing sun divine kingdom and enjoy the various benefits and peace of the blazing sun divine kingdom. Even the myriad worlds in the universe knew of the blazing sun divine kingdom's peaceful times. Some superhumans with the ability to move across worlds fought to come to the blazing sun divine kingdom on the high continent from other worlds, wanting to become subjects of the blazing sun divine kingdom. As there were too many living beings who wanted to immigrate, the Immigration and Nationality Management Departments of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom even specially adopted a policy to restrict immigration. They issued an order to prohibit immigration to living beings who had serious criminal experience. Only then did the pressure on immigration ease a little. Fortunately, the territory of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom was constantly expanding every day. These new subjects could at least have a place to live and work. Speaking of which, it was precisely because Zhou Fight believed in the kindness of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's subjects that he decided to recognize this racial divine artifact as its master. Furthermore, he would continue to become stronger in the future and obtain more treasures. He was confident that he could turn the key of heaven into a racial divine artifact that only had benefits and no harm. After that, Zhou Fight chatted with Lord of 10,000 Evils for a while more. Then, he said that he had something on and left alone. He came to the Supreme God Realm Monument. He opened the Supreme God Realm Monument and began to check which race divine artifacts were suitable for him to exchange. Chapter 1619. 4 Race Divine Artifacts. 12 Missions. 1. Zhou Fight opened the Supreme God Realm Monument and opened the Racial Divine Artifact interface. He directly searched for the exclusive Racial Divine Artifact of the Blazing Sun God race, human race. To advance to a high-level Master God tier kingdom, a lord needed to possess 50 Racial Divine Artifacts of their race. As for the Blazing Sun God race divine artifacts in his hands, he currently only had 45. He still needed 5 more to meet this advancement requirement. It's too slow to look for them one by one. It was better to buy it directly from the Supreme God Realm Monument. As for buying an immunity-type divine artifact, he could put it aside for now. In any case, he was not in a hurry. After observing for a while, he quickly found the purchase target. Racial Divine Artifact, Bronze Galloping Horse, Beginner Grade Racial Artifact or Racial Artifact exclusive to the human race. After the Lord places it in the territory, the people under his command will have a certain amount of riding talent, and the territory will be more likely to produce horses with high qualifications and pure bloodlines. When the people ride horse-like pets into the territory of an alien race, The horse's speed is increased by 10%, and when the cavalry charges against the alien race, the lethality is increased by 50%. Military merit required for exchange: 2 million military merits, 3 supreme mission medals. Racial artifact: Simua Ding, beginner grade racial artifact or racial artifact exclusive to the human race. After the Lord places it in the territory, the copper production in the territory will increase by 20%. The people in the territory will have more respect for women, who are mothers without affecting their rationality. The Lord's subjects and people will love the Lord more and abide by the laws of the territory. Military merit required for redemption: 1 million military merit, 2 supreme mission medals. Racial divine artifact: along the river during the Qingming festival, beginner grade racial artifact or racial artifact exclusive to the human race. After the Lord integrates it into the core of the territory will be more likely to attract outside painters to join the territory, greatly increasing the painting talent of the people. At the same time, the people of the territory will love the mountains and rivers of the motherland more. Military merit required for exchange: 3 million military merits, 1 supreme mission medal. Racial divine artifact: You the Great Nine Cauldrons, advanced grade racial artifact or racial artifact exclusive to the human race. After the Lord places it in the territory, it can suppress the luck of the Lord and the territory forces, so that it will not be lost or stolen. It is less likely to cause rebellion within the territory. When a foreign race invades, the Lord and the territory forces can react faster, while minimizing the losses and counter-attacking the invading foreign races as quickly as possible. When defeating the enemy, there is a 10% chance of obtaining the 9 Cauldrons treasure box, which can contain the Heart of Mist, equipment, materials, talent cards, divine crystals, architectural drawings, pet eggs. Military merit required for redemption: 6 million military merit points, 3 Master God tier quest medals. Racial divine artifact: Terracotta Warrior, intermediate grade race divine artifact or race-specific divine artifact of the human race. After the Lord places it in the territory can train high-level soldier types. Terracotta Warrior. The combat ability of the Terracotta Warrior is extremely comprehensive. Close combat, long-range attack, siege, defense, logistics, construction, all are proficient. Required military merits: 4 million military merits, 4 supreme mission medals. Zhou Feit looked at the 5 racial divine artifacts he had chosen and nodded in satisfaction. Even though most of them were beginner-grade race divine artifacts, only You the Great Nine Cauldrons were high-level race divine artifacts. However, he had only bought it to gather the resources and conditions for the advancement of the Master God tier kingdom, so he was naturally not so picky. His gaze landed on the intermediate-grade racial divine artifact, the Terracotta Warrior. Then, he shook his head regretfully. If it was in the past, he would definitely be overjoyed to obtain this race's divine artifact. High-level soldier types, terracotta soldiers, were not considered weak among the many terracotta soldiers after all. However, he already had the strongest divine weapons under him. Top supreme soldier types like the Supreme Holy Mage God and the Heavenly Soldiers were no longer needed. Then, he opened the conditions to advance to the Master God tier kingdom and saw that the racial divine artifact had indeed been satisfied. Now, to me, there are only the 3 most difficult requirements to advance to a high-level Master God tier kingdom. Territory level upgraded to Master God tier advanced grade. Conquer the Lord territory of the beginner grade Master God tier kingdom under the 3 Crimson Overlords. Conquer the territory of a Lord of a beginner grade Master God tier kingdom that is not under the command of the Crimson Overlord. Let's upgrade the territory to the Master God tier advanced grade first. The other 2 can't be forced. We'll just have to take it slow, Zhou Feit thought. Then, he looked at his information panel. User, Lord of the Blazing Sun, Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army, Ultimate Void Battleground, the 2nd leader of the Supreme Will Camp, military merits, 6 million military merits mission medal 10. 5 Supreme God mission medals other rewards, 2 universal race divine artifacts, there are still a lot of military merits and mission medals left. Then I can exchange for a few attribute immunity type divine artifacts. Zhou Feit muttered to himself. Then, he picked it up again. Soon, his eyes lit up. That's it. With a thought from him, the 6 million military credits and 10 Supreme God mission medals instantly disappeared. At this point, the military merits in his hands returned to 0 again, and he only had 5 mission medals left. Just like the last time, it was almost completely spent. At the same time, a white bear doll appeared in his hand. Race divine artifact. Holy bear demon puppet. Top race divine artifact. A race divine artifact exclusive to the light spirit bear race. After the Lord places it in the territory, all the subjects under his command will obtain the strength of the bear talent. Their personal basic strength will increase by 100 kilograms. After obtaining the defense of the bear talent, their personal defense will increase greatly and reduce the physical damage they receive by 20%. After obtaining the heart of the holy bear talent, the talent of the subjects under his command will increase slightly. When they advance to become God spirits with the law of strength as the foundation, the probability of breaking through to become God spirits will increase by 50%. Chapter 1620. 4 Race Divine Artifacts. 12 Missions. 2. As expected of the racial divine artifact, I spent 6 million military merits and 10 Supreme God mission medals to buy. The effect is top-notch. Zhou Feit sighed. Moreover, as one of the top 5 laws in the Supreme Great Cosmos, there were extremely few racial divine artifacts related to the law of strength. Only a divine object like the Supreme God Realm Monument would have such a top-notch race divine artifact. Otherwise, if he were to search in the myriad worlds, it would probably be very difficult for he to find such a top-notch and rare racial divine artifact, no matter how long he spent. With the enhancement of this racial divine artifact of the law of strength, they and the soldiers under him would have a huge advantage when facing enemies in the future, especially when facing enemies on the physics side. Then the next step is to transform it into a racial divine artifact of the blazing sun god race. Zhou Feit took out the common people's cauldron and threw the holy bear demon puppet in to receive the modifications of the common people's cauldron. Soon, Zhou Feit felt that 5% of his luck had been stripped out of his total luck and fused into the common people's cauldron. It turned into firewood for the common people's cauldron and began to modify the holy bear demon puppet. He could not help but click his tongue as he felt the loss of his luck. The conversion requirement of providence was really high. Then, he stopped thinking and began to wait. A moment later, boom, a low and muffled sound sounded, and the entire common people's cauldron shook slightly. Then, the lid of the common people's cauldron suddenly opened automatically. A silver stream of light flew out and headed straight for Zhou Feit before stopping in front of him. At the same time, Zhou Feit also felt it. About 15% of the power of providence flew out from its surface and fused into his providence. Zhou Feit could not help but exclaim. He had only consumed 5% of his providence, but the providence it provided was more than 15%. His luck increased by 10%. This majestic marionette was indeed worthy of being a top-notch race divine artifact that he valued. The providence it gave back was just too much. Then, he looked at the modified racial divine artifact. At that moment, his appearance had already changed drastically. From a white bear doll, he had turned into an ancient chaos-colored axe. He looked over and information about the racial divine artifact appeared. Race divine artifact. Heaven-splitting sacred axe. Top race divine artifact. A race divine artifact exclusive to the blazing sun god race. It originates from the myths and legends of the blazing sun god race's ancient god spirit, Pangu, who created the world. Under the condensation of the faith of heaven splitting, it is a top-notch race divine artifact. After the Lord placed it in the territory, all the subjects under him obtained the power of heaven splitting talent. Their personal basic strength increased by plus 1,000 kilograms. After obtaining the blessing of heaven splitting, their personal defensive ability increased greatly, reducing the 30% physical damage they received. The talent of the law of strength increased slightly. When using the law of strength as the foundation, the probability of breaking through increased by 80% when advancing to a God spirit. When advancing to a true God tier, the probability of breaking through increased by 50%. When advancing to a master God, the probability of breaking through increased by 10%. After reading it, Zhou gasped. What a top-notch racial divine artifact. It was far stronger than the 5-element stars that he had exchanged for previously. This transformation was a huge gain. Then, he looked at the name of this racial divine artifact and couldn't help but smile. Heaven-splitting sacred axe. It was only one word different from Panga's heaven-opening axe. As for Panga's heaven-opening axe, it was a companion divine artifact that had been born with he since he was born. It could grow with his strength. Under the nurturing of a large number of resources from the blazing sun divine kingdom, Panga had long reached the limit of an advanced grade master god tier. He was only a step away from becoming a supreme god. Zhou had once met he in private. If nothing went wrong, the other party should be able to advance to the supreme god level in 2 days. I wonder if Panga knows about the existence of this heaven-splitting sacred axe? This thought flashed through Zhou mind. However, he didn't ask. In any case, the heaven-splitting sacred axe was already in his hands. There was no point in asking. He only knew a dispensable answer. Putting away the heaven-splitting sacred axe, he closed the racial divine artifact interface and opened the mission interface. After careful selection, he chose a total of 12 missions and accepted them all. They were: Conquer Grade 3 Supreme God Realm War Territory, Ancient God Main City, Grade 3 Supreme God Realm Mission. Attack the Void Mystic Realm, exclusive mission of the Ancient God War Territory. Conquer Grade 2 Supreme God Level War Territory, Crystal Main City, Grade 2 Supreme God Level Mission. Attack the Void Mystic Realm, exclusive mission of the Crystal War Territory. Conquer a Grade 1 Supreme God Level War Territory, 9 Dragon Main City, Grade 1 Supreme God Level Mission. Attack the Void Mystic Realm, exclusive mission of the 9 Dragons War Territory. Conquer a Grade 1 Supreme God Level War Territory, Purple Cloud Main City, Grade 1 Supreme God Level Mission. Attack the Void Mystic Realm, exclusive mission of the Purple Cloud War Territory. Conquer Grade 1 Supreme God Level War Territory, Windbird Main City, Grade 1 Supreme God Level Mission. Attack the Void Mystic Realm, exclusive mission of the Windbird War Territory. Conquer Grade 1 Supreme God Level War Territory, Whirlpool Main City, Grade 1 Supreme God Level Mission. Attack the Void Mystic Realm, exclusive mission of the Whirlpool War Territory. Zhou looked at the 12 war missions and nodded slightly. As long as he completed all these missions, 14 of the 15 war territories in the Ultimate Void battlefield would return to the Supreme Will's camp. At that time, as long as they eliminated the Ultimate Void Sanctuary, where the Void Emperor's avatar was stationed, they could completely chase the Ultimate Void race out of the Ultimate Void battlefield. This way, the Supreme Great Cosmos and the Crimson Great Cosmos would no longer be disturbed by the Ultimate Void battlefield. When the time comes, the Supreme Will, the decisive battle between the Crimson Overlord and the Void Emperor is coming, right? However, that should have nothing to do with me, Zhou thought. In a decisive battle of that level, even a few true Supreme Will Realm experts would probably die. At the Quasi-Supreme Will Realm, they were no different from cannon fodder. My strength is far from enough to participate in that war. At that time, as long as the Supreme Will did not ask him to go, he would definitely not get involved. His life is the most important thing. At the same time, in the Reincarnation Sacred Palace, Zhou was sitting cross-legged on the Tao Comprehension futon and cultivating. After a long time, he slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the Holy Scripture of the Heart floating in front of him, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. As expected of a holy artifact, I feel that after cultivating in the time world for another night, my willpower will reach the advanced stage will divine transformation realm. When the time comes, I'm only a step away from the willpower level of the supreme will realm, he muttered to himself. At that time, he would raise his cultivation realm to the quasi-supreme will realm, and could seek a breakthrough and advance to the supreme will realm. Then, he thought of the supreme will realm true blood avatar he had encountered on the ultimate void battlefield today. He muttered to himself, even though my strength has improved very quickly, my enemies are improving fast too. The enemy Zhou fight encountered this time was the true blood incarnation of the supreme will realm. The next time might be the true supreme will realm. I can't slack off. We have to keep trying. Only by reaching the supreme willpower realm and possessing supreme willpower techniques, then possessing the supreme willpower realm, heavenly fate Di Huang, and creating a large number of supreme willpower realm treasures, or even will holy artifacts through heavenly fate Di Huang, can I truly have the ability to protect myself. At that time, even if I face the willpower, I should be able to protect myself with a large number of supreme willpower resources. Zhou thought. Along the way, he had relied on the suppression of resources to defeat the enemy. Even if it was an enemy of a higher level, he could still win with the advantage of overwhelming resources. If he couldn't win, at least it wouldn't be a problem for him to protect him. This was the reason why he had the confidence to protect himself in the supreme will realm. Of course, the prerequisite was that he had to advance to the supreme will realm first. He felt a sense of urgency at the thought of this. Chapter 1621. Zhou's Worry. War Summary. 1. Zhou took a deep breath to ease the sense of urgency in his heart. One step at a time. Take your time. There's no point in being anxious. He didn't think too much about it, and turned on his personal terminal. As expected, he saw that Zero had already sent him the summary of today's battle. Zhou looked over. Under the combined efforts of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom Army, and the army on the Ultimate Void battlefield, the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom had eliminated a total of 183 beginner-level Divine Kingdom Lord factions, 111 intermediate-grade Divine Kingdom Lord factions, 65 advanced-grade Divine Kingdom Lord factions, and 18 Overlord-level Lord factions. Coupled with the enemies that Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils had eliminated in the 8 Void Mystic Realms, as well as Monin and Sheila's Ultimate Void Army, they had eliminated more than 4,000 enemies from the people of foreign races in the capital units, more than 200 billion God spirits, more than 50 billion true God tiers, nearly 500,000 master God tiers of the people of foreign races, and a total of 315 supreme gods of the people of foreign races. After collating the statistics, the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom had obtained a total of about 1 Guy unit mist core of various levels, origin crystals, skill books, equipment, and basic materials. 10 capital units 2 quadrillion 389 trillion 190 billion 419,733,892 green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments. 81,344,197 legendary tier and below Lord Talent spheres. 812 units of Chaos Divine Treasure. A large number of Lord Talent crystal fragments of other levels. There were also 1 Guy unit 12,892,389,892,140 million units of divine crystals from low-tier deity level to high-tier deity level. 2,523,918,121,521 true God tier divine crystals. 2,191,231,908,943 Master God tier divine crystals. 223,122,387 Grade 1 to Grade 3 Supreme God divine crystals. 40 capital units had 1,237,347,218 million divine artifacts from lesser gods to high tier deity level. 6,112,836 million true God tier divine artifacts. 52,312,904 master God tier divine artifacts. 302,384 supreme God divine artifacts. There were about 20 capital units, 2,389 trillion divine spark fragments, God tier herbs, God tier ingredients, God tier ores, God tier blueprints, and other treasures. 10238, 912, 893, 281 master God tier herbs, God tier ingredients, God tier ores, God tier blueprints, and other treasures. 39,722,834 supreme God level God tier herbs, God tier ingredients, God tier ores, God tier blueprints, and other treasures. In terms of insight defection, Zhou Fight was outside the White Dawn Void Mystic Realm today. Through the land of Earth, the A Minister of the King had insight defection, a total of 51,223,108,371 ultimate void God spirits. 5,181,037,123 ultimate void true God tiers. 31,931 ultimate void master God tiers. And 12 ultimate void supreme gods. In addition, there was also the surrendered Monin. Then, in the process of conquering the void mystic realm, through the Son of Destiny, the insight defection reached 10,232,413,467 ordinary God spirits, 329,828,713 true God tiers, 3,123 master gods, and 2 supreme gods. In addition, the Lords of the Star Alliance had also instigated 555 capital unit soldiers, more than 511 billion God spirits, more than 1 million true God tiers, and 312 supremacy gods. In the end, in terms of the advancement of God spirits, after the consecutive battles today, although the God spirits under Zhou were extremely tired, their gains were also extremely shocking. After the consecutive battles today, although the God spirits under Zhou were extremely tired, their gains were also extremely shocking. In terms of advancement, just the newly advanced ordinary God spirits had 10,428,237 million legendary tier advanced grade soldiers, promoted to low-tier deity level elementary grade God spirits. There were also 2,193,278 high-tier deity level advanced grade God spirits, who had advanced to true God tier elementary grade God spirits. Another 3,761 top-notch true gods of the human race, and 8,673 top-notch true gods of the people of foreign races, felt their master God tier bottleneck, and applied to enter the reincarnation sacred palace, to cultivate in seclusion, to try to break through to the master God tier realm. If nothing went wrong, he would officially break through tomorrow. Zhou's original military strength was 1 Guy Unit 455 capital units, 823,372,313,271 soldiers, 8,324,801,811 God spirits, 1,800,043,058,325 true gods, 47,616 master gods, and 33 supreme gods. Now, with the addition of these divine spirit experts who had instigated the insight defection, and the 5 supreme gods and 15 master gods recruited from the chaotic mystic realm, the military strength under him had reached 1 Guy Unit 1010 capital units 731, 283, 1272, 978 soldiers, 248,573,699,994 God spirits, 7,357,117,439 true God tier, 82,997 master gods, and 53 supreme gods. Zhou nodded in satisfaction after reading it. The improvement today was especially huge, especially in terms of ordinary God spirits and true God tier. The number had increased by 4 times. The number of supreme gods had also increased to as many as 53. With so many supreme gods around, Zhou Fight would be even more confident when he went out. Such troops could easily dominate a region in the myriad worlds. Now, other than him, being inferior to Lord of 10,000 Evils in terms of trump cards in the realm of supreme will, he had definitely surpassed Lord of 10,000 Evils in all aspects, be it in terms of military strength, the number of god spirits, or equipment and divine artifacts. After I take down those 10 war territories, my Supreme Lord Reserve Army position will also surpass Lord of 10,000 Evils and become the third Reserve Army. The flames of ambition burned in Zhou's heart. 10 war territories sounded like a lot. However, this was not the first time Zhou had come to the ultimate void battlefield. With his current military strength in the ultimate void battlefield, he was confident that he could take down all the war territories in 5 days at most. In addition, in this war summary, he was even happier when he saw the 812 units of Chaos Divine Treasure. Without exception, these Chaos Divine Treasures were obtained from the White Dawn Void Mystic Realm and the other 8 Void Mystic Realms. Every Void Mystic Realm could bring he about 50 to 150 units of Chaos Divine Treasures. This Void Mystic Realm is really a good place to obtain a Chaos Divine Treasure. It's a pity that no one in the Void Mystic Realm is conquered. Otherwise, I'd have a new and stable source of Chaos Treasures. Chapter 1622, Zhou's Worry. War Summary. 2. Zhou lamented. Right at that moment, another message was sent to Zhou's personal terminal. He looked over and realized that it was sent by his main avatar Zhou Manage. The content of the message was about the high-level Divine Kingdom Lord faction in the Chaos Sea purchasing a Chaos Divine Treasure. Currently, there were a total of 55 high-level Divine Kingdom Lord factions that had come to the Chaos Sea to collect Chaos Divine Treasures. After 2 days of thought and conversation, 11 high-level Divine Kingdom Lord factions were willing to exchange for the Chaos Divine Treasures they had obtained from the ruins of time. And what they wanted was surprisingly the same. It was either a divine artifact or a treasure that could assist in advancing to the God Spirit realm. Zhou was not surprised after reading it. To the Divine Kingdom Lord factions that yearned for God Spirits, True God Tiers, Master God Tiers, and even Supreme Gods, they valued these 2 types of benefits the most. Most of the rest were not very important, and the rich and imposing Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom naturally agreed readily to their request. After a series of negotiations, they obtained a total of 220 units of Chaos Divine Treasures from the hands of 11 high-level Divine Kingdom Lord factions. Every high-level Divine Kingdom Lord faction would only trade 20 units. Zhou guessed that they had secretly discussed the situation of the same transaction amount. However, he did not care about this. It was fine as long as he was willing to trade. As for the number of transactions, he didn't care. In any case, it was a long-term matter. If he were to be a little tough because he wanted more, causing they to destroy the trade relationship between they and reduce the benefits of they, that would not be what he wanted to see. In that case, now I have 1,256 units of Chaos Divine Treasures. Zhou nodded in satisfaction. He had spent a total of 1,000 units of the Chaos Divine Treasure that Zhou Marshal had sent over earlier in the day to upgrade his territory, leaving him with only 224 units of the Chaos Divine Treasure. It was just night time, and he once again had 1,256 units of Chaos Divine Treasures. At this rate, it won't be long before I can upgrade my territory to the territory of Master God Tier Advanced Grade. Then, I can upgrade the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom to a high-level Master God Tier Kingdom. Zhou thought. The speed at which the Chaos Divine Treasures were collected was much faster than he had imagined. He had originally estimated that it would take 10 days. Now I feel like I can gather it in about 5 days. Right at that moment, a female figure emitting boundless pure white light appeared in front of Zhou. When Zhou saw this, he hurriedly stood up and said respectfully, "Greetings, Lord Supreme Will. I came here to tell you something." The Crimson Overlord has already given the order for all the Scarlet factions to retreat from the Ultimate Void battlefield. They've all retreated. From now on, the Ultimate Void battlefield will belong to us completely. The Crimson Overlord will also not interfere in the Ultimate Void battlefield from today onwards. The Supreme Will went straight to the point. Zhou was naturally very surprised. He did not expect the Crimson Overlord to give up on the Ultimate Void battlefield. Even though the Ultimate Void battleground was a battlefield, it was also a treasure land that hid treasures everywhere, because it could collect and intercept ownerless treasures that passed by in the Ultimate Void environment. Giving up on the Ultimate Void battleground could be said to have lost a resource point for nothing. However, after thinking about it, he felt that it was very reasonable. Becky, who was stationed in the Ultimate Void battlefield, had been beaten to death by him after all. Even though he had also been punished in the end and almost lost a holy artifact, Becky, as the former Supreme Scarlet Reserve Army, had lost to him, the Supreme Lord Reserve Army. It was not only he who had lost face, but also the Crimson Overlord behind him. After the Crimson Overlord punished Zhou, it could no longer attack a junior like Zhou. Otherwise, if word got out, it would only make the other god spirits, and even the Supreme Will realm think that it was petty. You're a mighty willpower cultivator. Why are you staring at a grade 1 Supreme God Junior, who doesn't even have a Supreme Willpower realm, and not letting go? Since it was so awkward to stay, he might as well leave. Just as Zhou was thinking about these things, the Supreme Will looked at Zhou's thoughtful expression, and was even more satisfied with his successor. Calm in the face of danger, calm in the face of change, calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. Even in the face of the cold attitude of the Crimson Overlord, Zhou was clearly not afraid. He had clearly understood the crux of the matter. The Supreme Will liked Zhou's brave and resourceful attitude and performance. The Ultimate Void battleground will be ours from now on. Hurry up and strive to unify the entire Ultimate Void battleground as soon as possible. When the time comes, you'll be rewarded. The Supreme Will smiled. Lord Supreme Will, you trust me too much. I'm just a grade 1 Supreme God. Zhou complained. The Supreme Will was speechless. What grade 1 Supreme God could be like you? Not only could he fight and kill 2 quasi-Supreme Willpower Realm experts alone, but even the true blood incarnation of the Supreme Willpower Realm could not kill you. He didn't say anything else. His figure gradually faded, and it was obvious that he was about to leave. When Zhou saw this, he stopped talking nonsense and hurriedly said, Lord Supreme Will, I killed 2 quasi-Supreme Willpower Realm subordinates under the Void Emperor, and even snatched their Willpower Holy Artifact. The Void Emperor might send stronger enemies, or even Supreme Willpower Realm experts to deal with me. Lord Supreme Will, you can't abandon me. He wouldn't dare. The Supreme Will said calmly. What if? Zhou hurriedly said. This concerned his life. He didn't dare touch this 1 in 10,000 chances. The reason why he could escape the calamity of the Supreme Will Realm's True Blood Avatar during the day was because he had relied on the ability of Blood Rebirth to revive, not because he was avoiding it without any injuries. How could he have that ability? If he could really easily dodge without being injured, the other party was not worthy of being called the True Blood Avatar of the Supreme Will Realm. As for why the other party couldn't kill him with a single strike and didn't implicate the main body, this was because Zhou had too much luck. Because the providence was too great. Under the protection of the huge providence, the Supreme Will Realm True Blood Avatar could not destroy the main body with a single strike. Since his main body was not dead, Zhou Fight naturally would not really die. Therefore, after Zhou Fight's main body was destroyed, he relied on a drop of blood that he had prepared beforehand to be reborn. He then quickly rushed to the battlefield, creating the illusion that he was alive without any injuries. And after this battle, he also knew how terrifying the existence of the Supreme Will Realm was. The True Blood incarnation formed from just a drop of blood was already so terrifying. In front of the other party, he could not retaliate at all. How terrifying was the Supreme Will Realm at the peak of the complete form. Zhou could not imagine it. And when he thought about how the Void Emperor knew that he had monopolized 2 quasi-supreme willpower realms, and that the enemies he would send next were very likely to be true supreme willpower realms, he had always been very worried. That was why he was so persistent in telling the Supreme Will about this. After hearing Zhou Feit's words, the Supreme Will did not say anything and disappeared into the pure white light. Seeing this, Zhou started thinking. The Supreme Will didn't answer him. Could it be because he had already prepared protective measures for him? That's how it should be. There's no way the Supreme Will can't think of what I can think of, Zhou thought. However, this was only his guess. If the Supreme Will was really unprepared, it would be over once he encountered danger. Only the Supreme Will realm can deal with the Supreme Will realm. I have to prepare some Supreme Will level self-preservation methods myself, Zhou thought. He thought of the 2 will holy artifacts he currently had. The Holy Scripture of the Heart gave up. Even though this will holy artifact was good, it was still a pure supplementary will holy artifact. It had no offensive ability or ability to protect itself. As for the formless book that he had just obtained, when Zhou thought of this, he saw a blood-colored book appear in front of him. It was the will holy artifact formless book. Chapter 1623, Supreme Sacred Body and Eternal Immortal Realm. 1. Divine Artifact Name, Formless Book, Divine Artifact Grade, Will Holy Artifact Low Level, Divine Artifact Law, Formless Summoning. Using the true blood of an expert as a summoning material, it can summon the true blood avatar of an expert. The true blood avatar has between 1/10,000 of the original Bodhi's strength. It can summon the true blood avatar of the Supreme Will realm at the highest. At the same time, the formless book could summon up to 10 true blood avatars. After consuming the power contained in the true blood left behind by the experts, the true blood avatar would also disappear. The true blood stored in the formless book would also disappear at the same time. It needed to replenish the true blood of the experts before it could be summoned again. Prompt 1. If a powerhouse who is not quasi-supreme will realm wants to forcefully use a will holy artifact, they need to consume a large amount of Supreme God divine power and willpower to use it. Prompt 2. Will recognize you as its master. Minimum will requirement. Will divine transformation realm. Prompt 3. Current number of true blood sealed in the formless book. 3, 471/10. 000. Zhou Feit looked at the attributes of the formless book and nodded, but then he felt a headache. The formless book was useful, but where could he find the true blood of a Supreme Willpower Realm expert? Even if he could find a Supreme Willpower Realm expert, how could he convince the other party to give him his true blood? Don't think that the true blood of Supreme Will Realm experts was endless. There was also a limited amount of true blood in the body of a Supreme Will Realm cultivator, and it was very difficult to recover. In addition, for safety reasons, most Supreme Willpower Realm experts were unwilling to casually give their true blood to others. Just as he was fretting, an existence emitting the light of the 6 paths of reincarnation appeared in front of Zhou. It was the reincarnation will, soul heaven. Zhou looked at the other party's figure and could not help but be stunned. He thought to himself, the heavens are really taking good care of me. I was worried about where I got the true blood of the Supreme Will Realm, so they directly sent it to me. That's right. Why didn't I think of looking for Brother Reincarnation just now? With his relationship with Brother Reincarnation, it was not a problem for him to want a drop of Supreme Will Realm true blood, right? Zhou thought. Why are you looking at me like that? The Reincarnation Will originally wanted to talk about himself, but when he saw his brother staring at him, he could not help but ask curiously. Nothing. Zhou shook his head and asked, Brother, you suddenly came to visit. There should be something, right? Can't I come if it's nothing? The Reincarnation Will chuckled. Brother, what are you saying? Zhou hurriedly said, My family is your family. No matter when you come, it's fine. I don't think so. The Reincarnation Will waved his hand and said, Forget it. I won't joke with you anymore. I came here this time to tell you something. The inheritance ground of the Yellow River will open in 3 days. The land of inheritance of the Yellow Rivers is about to open? Zhou's body trembled when he heard this. Then, he sighed. It's finally about to open. The reincarnation will nodded and said, let me ask you again. Do you still want to go there and obtain the inheritance of the Yellow Rivers will? Of course. Zhou smiled and said. If it was in the past, I might have been a little more cowardly. But now, I feel that there shouldn't be anything that can stop me in the land of inheritance of the Yellow Rivers will. Even though he was only a grade 1 supreme god now, his combat strength could be said to be the top existence below the supreme will realm. The inheritance ground of the Yellow Rivers could only allow supreme gods to enter at most. If the current him entered the inheritance ground of the Yellow Rivers will, if nothing unexpected happened, it would be no different from opening the invincible realm. If that was the case, why not go? The reincarnation will laughed at these domineering words. However, he wasn't smiling mockingly. Instead, he was smiling with amusement and emotion. Who would have thought? A few days ago, when he had just mentioned to him about snatching the inheritance of the Yellow River, although he had agreed on the surface, he was actually very cowardly and hesitant deep down. At that time, Zhou thought that he could not tell. However, in fact, the reincarnation will had long seen that Zhou had the intention to retreat, but it was different now. He could tell that Zhou really had the courage now. He was even extremely confident that he would dare to venture into the Yellow River's land of inheritance. Not bad. In that case, the inheritance of his good friend, Yellow Rivers might really have a good ending and not fall into the hands of the enemy. The reincarnation will thought. Thinking of the death of the Yellow Rivers he could not help but feel sad. If he was still alive and saw that he had grown into the reincarnation that controlled the netherworld and reincarnation, he would definitely be very happy, right? After Zhou returned to his senses, he saw the dim expression in the reincarnation will's eyes. When he saw this, he suddenly said, Brother, I've actually seen Lord Yellow Rivers a few times. The reincarnation didn't react at first. When he reacted, he immediately grabbed Zhou's arm excitedly and said, How is that possible? You've seen the Yellow Rivers will. Where is him? How's his condition? Isn't he not dead? How is he still alive? No, that's not important. Hurry up and let me go. I want to see him too. You're hurting me, brother. Zhou grimaced as he looked at the other party's hands that were grabbing his arms tightly. Look, I knew that he was in a hurry. Oh, I'm sorry. I am in such a hurry. Upon hearing this, reincarnation will also realize that he had overreacted. He retracted his hands and even massaged his arms. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.